Right. How is everybody?
Hello.
Yes. So Jonathan, I just wanted a quick shout out to the sponsors of the show. It's Cold Skull Coffee. Anyone, if you're like me, I always say this, but they do a blend called Cold Start, and it's like rocket fuel. It literally is like rocket fuel. It's a really nice blend of coffee. So head over and check out his coffee blends. www.coldskullcoffee.com. You can order small bags, larger bags, does all different size bags basically, and also Silverback cuts for custom made waistcoats. And Lucas does sports gear. He does decorative knives and other bits and bobs like that, jewelry as well. That's www.silverbackcuts.com, and head over and check out his cool stuff.
You know what? I'd like to own it. I've always thought I'd like to own a cut, a really good one, but I don't think I can pull one off. Like to wear on the regular. But I would I think as a motorcyclist, I should have a cut at some point.
Yeah, I think
logo on the back and that.
Yeah, and I think to be honest, with the fact that somebody like Lucas, that you can actually have it tailor made.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. So if you wanting it pulling in a bit, if you're kind of wanting more like the sophisticated look where it's not baggy and that's what's really cool with it. And he could print your logo.
Yeah.
Onto the silk lining. So you could have it like J-Hole Motor inside. Do you know what I mean? That's what's really cool about somebody like him, that you can have all different types. You can have textile combined with leather. There's not really much that he couldn't do, really.
Very cool.
Really cool guy. Based over in Marbella in Spain. Right. But he ships worldwide. And like I was saying earlier, obviously I got to interview him, and then obviously I did a lot of shout outs for him. And he sent me a cut out of nowhere pretty much. And I said, look, it'd be great to have you as a sponsor. And he was like, yeah, great. And it just helps each other out, and it kind of like what we've been talking about and like what you've been doing as well. And, but no, it's really, really cool to be here. See, I followed your journey for years. I know we did a podcast. I can't remember, but
was it a couple of years ago now?
No, it was last. Was it last year? It was last year, but I think it was like winter time.
Right. Okay.
I think about episode 4, mid-40s it was.
Right.
Your episode was towards the end. And like I said before we actually went live, it's like up until recently, we'd done the longest. It was 2 hours and 30-ish minutes. And I recently had a guy that was on for 3 hours. Yeah.
We got to be careful of that. When I did Teapot 1 with Bruce. And before you know it, you've done 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah,
and
he's got a cool podcast. He's got a great follow.
He's
following.
You know what? A lovely guy. Really. Yeah, I've done 2 with him so far as well.
He's been at it a while as well, hasn't he?
Yeah,
he's been at it for a few years, I think. From going off the content that he has out there.
Yeah,
but no, I think the more the merrier. I've interviewed bike builders, tattooists. Mindset coaches, leather seat makers, all walks really. Generally seems to obviously stay within like tattooists, bike builders, leather seat makers, clothing brands as well. I've had some really cool clothing brands on. Even had the guys from Shred and Butter.
Right.
I don't know if you heard of them. So down in...
I'm going, yeah.
Well, Shred and Butter, have you ever watched Carry On Glamping with Johnny Vegas on Channel 4?
All right, yeah.
If you've watched that, when Johnny Vegas had that fire truck built, that was built by Shred and Butter.
Okay.
They do camper vans, basically.
Yeah.
Really, really, really... But they're like... I reached out to everybody. I think like years ago, initially when I spoke to you, I think I had a few questions about how you painted one of your engines, and you happily stepped me through the best ways to do it. Then I remember messaging you and saying, "Oh, Jonathan, have you got a front brake caliper for a CG?" and your replies were, "I don't buy a project unless." One of the things I'm looking for is that it has a intact front brake, because the prices of a CG
you can't buy it because they're really hard. They don't make them anymore for one, really, unless you pay real big money. and they quite regularly break. People misuse them and they break, so they become like really rare.
Right.
And you pay a lot of money, and then this is a 125.
It's ridiculous.
But I was right?
Yeah, no, mate. I mean, yeah, I asked you first, and then I went on to David Silver's, and I was like, no, I don't want to remortgage my house.
Yeah.
I don't want the whole bike.
Paying 500 quid for
exactly right.
125.
And try and find one on eBay.
Yeah, you won't get them secondhand.
So what I ended up doing.
I only know this because I made that mistake.
Yeah.
I bought my first bike without a front brake caliper. And they went, "Oh, you'll pick one of them up, no problem."
It's ridiculous.
And I stupidly agreed, then ended up having to pay 500 quid for a new one, which is more than I paid for the donor bike.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. And what I ended up doing is I ended up using chemical metal. I ended up using chemical because the thread wasn't completely stripped. It was in one of the pins for the pads. It wasn't completely stripped, but it wasn't. I tried running a coil, running a tap through it, and it just wasn't right. Yeah. So I used chemical metal, and I basically just re-tapped the chemical metal, and I put it in, and all I wanted it to do was bite, and it bit, and I was happy.
Well, as long as it's not in a place that affects safety, I'll teach you how to do a helicoil at some point.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be I tell you, saying about helicoil. So I built first bike I built. My dad was 15. I had the duty of putting the exhaust back on my 1983 Suzuki that I told you about.
Right.
He hands me a tiny wrench, about a ratchet about yay big. He says, once you've nipped it in, he said, nip it. He said, he said, don't hang on it, anything like that. He says, because you'll strip the threads. Aluminium thread, steel bolt, and I'm like, there I am, 15-year-old, put all this on. We got round to started it up, and it was just blowing straight out the exhaust, outside the exhaust port. And he looked at me, he said, "What did I tell you?" I was like, "Well, it nipped up." He said, "Yeah, but I told you just to nip it, and that was it." He said, "That's why I handed you a ratchet that small, so you couldn't lean on it."
Yeah, exactly. So in that process, we just had a similar thing with Bob across the road. He's rebuilding an engine now for a Tiger Cup, and because these it's classic trials bikes, right? So they're being taken apart and put together all the time. These competition bikes, and what people do sometimes, like they'll over tighten a case bolt or an engine bolt, and the tolerances are really small. On those old bikes, the bolts are a very specific length, right? And in some cases, they need a pinch washer or a spring washer or something like that on them. And what the guys do on the side of the track is they'll take the bolt out, get the engine cover off, they put it in, but they'll forget to put the shrink washer on.
Right.
And that means the bolt then goes in an extra to get it tight. It's going in an extra mil because there's no string washer.
There's nothing stopping
it from. The problem is
they're
right behind that engine cover, which is where the bolt should stop. There's an oil drain. So what they're doing is they're pushing the pin through.
So they're starving the engine of.
Yeah. So it goes through the oil drain. It stops the oil getting through, and all of a sudden you blow the crank.
Right.
It's crazy.
Wow.
So
literally, so oil can actually flow up to the back of where the bolt will. That is.
Yeah. Ultimately, like there's a millimeter wall to the end of this.
Oh, right.
Replace it. But yeah, so stuff like that, especially in old bikes that were made to and stuff like that. What we leave people.
Right.
That's never happened before.
That has never happened before. I'm the most professional podcaster in the mate. I just wing it. I wing it every time. So, where was we before that?
We were talking about tolerances and bolts. I don't think it was particularly interesting. We can move on if you like.
No, but it's interesting for people. Like it's like if there is any
there's a lesson in there, right?
Absolutely.
So,
and if there is anybody out there that's like obviously not sure, double check. Know, because obviously some of them, I mean, no doubt that them engines that your friend's working on around the corner are like they're not just replaceable parts, are they?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so kind of this is what was so exciting for me to get down. It was like following your journey from when you first had your garage to then like obviously seeing that when you were posting, building you built a wooden extension.
Yeah,
onto the front of it.
I outgrew So for those of you who don't know, I used to operate when I was a hobbyist before I turned professional. I was using I'd converted my old single garage on the side of my house into a workshop, and I fast grew out of that. So then I had to build I built this big wooden extension. So I managed to put another like 10 feet on the front of that, and then moved out into there. But then that got too small rapidly, quickly.
Is that about this is about over a course of 5-6 years? 6 years?
I started, I built my first bike 6-7 years ago, and I just never stopped.
I mean,
it's difficult when people,
yeah,
it's been a very fast journey to get from there to here. But as you said earlier, I'm like all in.
Yeah,
and you asked my wife, I have lived and breathed motorcycles and building for all that time. So, and sometimes, sorry,
mate.
My wife asked me the other day. She saw something I was doing online, something I'd posted online, and she said, "Like, I don't understand how you can do this. Where all this knowledge came from? You've got no formal qualifications in bike building. Where did it all come from?" And I was like, well, I've lived, like I just said, I've lived and breathed it for 6 years. I could have done a degree twice over in that time.
What do you think it was that made you? Do you think, obviously, like we spoke earlier, like you was a teacher, a music teacher for a period of time. Do you think that the fact that your brain was already configured in order to absorb information, do you think that's kind of where you've been able to, like, because obviously you've come a long way in your bike building career. I mean, your garage, like your setup it's incredible. It's not just like this having a go I mean, obviously that's what triggered it. Yeah. But what do you think it was that made you? Because like you're machining stuff.
I am really passionate about learning. I always have been. I'm an educated guy, right? I've got a degree, I've got master's credits, I've got teaching diplomas, QTS status in this country. So I've always been into education.
Do you think that's helped?
Yeah, I never stopped learning. I know how to learn, right? So because I've been through all that to a high level in education, and ultimately I've then taught. I know how to learn. I think I learned how to learn early. I have made sure when I was in this, when I was learning, I reached out to people like you do. And I reached out a lot to people that I saw above me. And most of those people were incredibly generous. And I've made sure ever since I started to surround myself with the right people.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Innovation, the race team soon, in a bit maybe. But
definitely.
The time and my good friend Bob Moore, who everyone that follows my Instagram account is probably sick of hearing about. But without people like that, people that are right at the top of their game, allowing me in and giving me their experiences and giving me their, teaching me and taking me in, I wouldn't be able to do this. But I'm always learning. I've never stopped learning. I never say I'm an expert in anything. I put things out on social media and I say like this, I believe this is the right way to do things. There's always going to be people that disagree. I've never been proud, So if I make a mistake, I will hold my hands up and I'll say like, yeah, that's right. Somebody else just told me that this is the better way to do it, and I'm fine with that. And that's how you progress. So never getting that. You got to keep your feet on the ground, right? You can't
100%.
And arrogance is the biggest killer. So you've got to be open to learning, even when you're working on a professional level. Just the biggest show of intelligence is understanding you know nothing, right?
Yeah.
So
and accepting that there is somebody that's going to know more, and that also like kind of what's crazy is like I remember when you put a photo, this going back, I mean, before I even had my 666 Customs account or even my tattooing account, I just had a normal Instagram account, and I was following, obviously the algorithm puts out that you like bikes, so it gives you content to engage with, and you'd put up a series of photos of when you'd painted one of the CG engines, and like you openly just, when I asked you in a DM, like you were like, use this primer, use this method, use this type of paint. And I think obviously kind of where I'm going with this is like where you've had help, you're also willing. It's like the law of attraction. Like you can't hold on to things. Like you're openly just helping someone that wants help, because you've had it come to you. You've had help when you've needed it.
It's paying it forward.
Yeah, paying it forward.
I know full well I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the kindness of strangers helping me out when I had a question. So I try and pay that back. And people message me on Instagram all the time. I even have people ringing the business line. A guy rang me up the other day. He was a lovely bloke, and he had questions about which size tires he should put, what's safe, what do you recommend, all this sort of stuff. And I sat and talked to him for half an hour. He was a lovely bloke.
Yeah.
But, that was 6 o'clock at night when I'm at home.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not recommending everyone.
No, don't start ringing him.
You've got to be,
Yeah.
And now I've got a connection with somebody I never met before. And he's gone away happy, and thanked me for my time and all that sort of stuff. And like I said, if people hadn't been generous with themselves to me, I wouldn't be around. Thomas, Benzin Cafe Racers. The whole thing that started me was seeing his bike, one of his CG 125s, and I saw one of his, and I thought, that's beautiful. I want to try and make one of them. And this was my first build. I even put photographs of his bike around my workshop.
Okay.
And he's seen the picture now.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
And I tried to copy elements of it.
Yeah.
Now my bike turned out different in the end, but he was so generous. He could have turned around to me and say, like, you're not building I don't want you building my bike. It's my bike. And he could have gone the other way and said, no, I'm not helping you with that. But he wasn't. He was incredibly generous. And now we're lifelong friends now.
That's incredible.
We've seen each other. We always hang out with each other at the bike shed shows. We talk fairly regularly. He rang me up he messaged me the other day. He says, can you remember how these speedos work? I can't change it from kilometers to miles per hour. And it's a joke we've had running for like 5 years. And then I pull up the instructions and I remember how to do it.
Yeah.
It's just stuff like that. But he was the first one that was, really generous with his time. With me. If you're not following Benzin Cafe Racers, you should do.
To be fair, I'm not sure if I do. I think I follow so many people, but I'll have to double check that.
Well, he's got a lot to answer for. And that and my barber, who said to me once, have you ever seen a cafe racer? I might build one. And then that was when I was having my haircut.
Yeah.
And then I went home and I Googled cafe racers, and now it's my entire life.
Yeah, and I mean, and obviously, and like the attention to detail that goes into your builds. I mean, obviously, this is the first time I've actually got to see your work in person. Obviously, I only get to see kind of what I've seen you in person. I turn up at the door and it's like, hello.
Yeah,
and
it wasn't an awkward we've never met before. It was just like it's my mates here.
Yeah, and this is what's so cool about social media. This is like used in the correct way. It's like for what it's for, not for creating drama and like negativity and that's kind of like we're saying to you off air.
We hear a lot about that side of it.
There's a lot,
but
there's a lot.
I've built a business that's been backed up by it. I've met lifelong friends because of it. There's a lot of positives go on with it.
I think last time we spoke, you just put out a post I think the algorithm had changed, and you wasn't particularly happy with the way something was going on Instagram.
Yeah.
And you know, it was about the same time we'd done the last podcast. And I don't know if you can remember back to it, but there was.
Remember, I have to try really hard not to post a lot of the things that come into my head because I can't remember. I'm running a business account. You know, I get political from time to time.
No, I think Instagram had changed the algorithm, and a lot of people wasn't happy with what they were doing.
Right.
And you made a post, a video just saying like, I'm not going to do what.
Oh yeah, all the recommendations. Do you remember posting at certain times every day?
Yeah, you said I'm going to do what
3 posts a day, 4 reels a week. It was when all that came in.
Yeah, it was about, let's say, about 8-9 months ago. I think it was. What we
ended up with, because of that algorithm change, people were just putting out anything.
Yeah.
You know, nobody was putting out quality content. They were just putting out content for the sake of putting it out because they thought that's what the algorithm wanted. And then all of a sudden, we were just. Instagram was just awash with like pointless, empty content.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I think what I was trying to say to people is just carry on doing what you do. Don't put anything out, which is what I try and do. Just don't put anything out unless it's meaningful or you've done something good that you want to, you want to show to people. Just wait until you've got something good to show.
Yeah.
Now I'm not infallible. You know, I'm trying to play the Instagram game, play the algorithm game. So I'm trying to get more people to my page and stuff. So every so often I'll put something out because it's me testing,
seeing what
works.
Yeah. I mean, your video the other day where you tripped through the garage was awesome.
Well, I
thought that was funny as well. I love that. I was like, yeah, that's mint.
I did I did a course over Christmas, like an online course with a lovely guy, and I can't remember his name now, but he's from Whitby, right? And he's found some techniques that work really well with Instagram. So I paid for his course because he was a Yorkshireman and I quite liked him, and I fell for that. And he's a teacher as well. And Aaron, Grow in Halves, that's what it was. So I did some of that, and it had some ideas. And when I applied those ideas to the Instagram reel, it wasn't harming the content. It was just about how you present them. It was present them in a different way, right? So the idea was to capture people's attention in that first second.
Yeah.
Right. So I had this idea the other day that I was going to run right from one side of the workshop to the other side and I'd shout, "Wait, I've had an idea." And then I'd go in and explain my idea. The truth of the matter is that the first time I did it, I fell over. The second time I did it, I cramped up. And then I thought, I'm going to put that in another reel. I'm going to show me outtakes.
Awesome.
Put that in another reel. And then that one did quite well because it put the Muppets theme tune behind it.
Yeah. I thought, and the things, it's also showing that you're actually a real human being. Like, you know, it's not all that seriousness. I mean, I did. So I was trying to push TikTok for a while, and TikTok, I find it really, really hard. But I did. So I was genuinely having trouble. I'd lost the key to undo the nut on the back of the grinder, and I was having, you know, a proper dumb moment where I was struggling to undo them. So I thought, fuck it, I'm going to do a video where I was attempting to undo it with different tools. Yeah. And they were failing. And then eventually I got it. But what was really good from it was I had loads of people that were like, "No, you just push the button in and lock it and crack it." You know, and then some people were like obviously ripping the hell out of it. But like what I learned very quickly through social media, and I can imagine you've had a similar thing, was like when people chat shit or hating on what you're saying, I've been very lucky to learn that I'm actually looking at what they're not saying. And I'm looking at what they're not saying and what they're actually saying about themselves. The fact that anyone's willing to type a load of negative hate or crap behind the keyboard says a lot about them. And that's where I leave it.
There's a bit of a culture now, and because it's not about, for a lot of people, it's purely about engagement and monetization, right? You can monetize engagement. So we're awash now with posts that are particularly purposefully provocative.
Yeah.
Right. And we get in lots of misinformation, and it's creeping into the bike building world. It's creeping into mechanics, where somebody will post a video of doing something wrong on purpose.
Yeah.
Right. Just so they can get loads of angry people commenting.
Yeah.
You don't do it like that. And then all of a sudden your post is reaching 1 million people.
Yeah.
Because and that's monetizable.
Yeah.
The problem with that is it's spreading misinformation. And I know what it is most of the time. I know they've done it on purpose. But I hate misinformation because somebody might see it, especially when you're dealing with motor vehicles, motorbikes in particular. If you put in something out there that's unsafe, that some kid is just going to see and go into his garage and try doing it that way, when you know it's wrong, and ultimately they could go out and kill themselves on a bike, you know, that's harsh. That's wrong, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we're getting a lot of that now. People purposefully putting up wrong material, wrong advice just to get comments.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think, like, for example, when I did my video, it was like, I put something on the lines of like, how the fuck do you undo this? You know, so I did the video like, but I genuinely was struggling at the time. Like I'd lost the tool.
And you don't know. And that's absolutely.
And I made myself look a clown in it. You know, there was no deliberately like I put like two Phillips screwdrivers, flipped them over, trying to spin it, and I'm proper making myself look a clown doing it.
Yeah.
So there was no like, even the background music, like how you say, like with the Muppet tune, like there isn't. At the end of the day, if it's clearly comical, like no one can take that serious. Like if you're wanting to put a serious comment in that, like okay, that's your choice. And you know, like when we were downstairs talking earlier, like none of my content is how to. It's very much watch me attempt not to fuck up. Yeah. And I clearly state, I say to people, you're not coming onto this platform to learn how to do anything. You're watching me have a go. And that for me is very much what it's about, is about attempting to have a go and inspiring others to do the same. You know, obviously common sense is like, if you're going to cut a frame up, you need to know what you're doing. You know, I mean, like when I built the subframe for the ZX10, I deliberately went with like 3mm thick tube, you know, seamless tube. I'd overcompensated on plates where I brought the
over-engineered it.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, of course.
And then
it's a safer way to go, isn't it?
Yeah. And then I got a friend who's like 6 foot odd, 20 odd stone. I was like, jump on it. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, look, if it fucking holds you, I said, it's going to hold the average bloke, you know? And yeah, I built that like 6 years ago, and I've still got the bike, and it's still rock solid. You know, if
you're ever in doubt, anything over engineering, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
And I'm a bugger for overthinking things, over engineering things. But you were saying earlier about like thinking things through and stuff like that.
Yeah. And that's it. At the end of the day, it's like, I mean, obviously you're building bikes for people. I mean, I can imagine it's absolutely terrifying, the idea of something failing. Obviously, nothing would have
drives you. I mean,
do you know what I mean?
You have to put that to the back of your mind to a certain extent, otherwise you'd never be able to do what you do.
No.
But you know, ultimately, I build a bike, and then I've got 20-something bikes on the road right now.
That's awesome. That's incredible.
Since I started, so I think I've just broken into 20. So yeah, and they're all out on the road. And if you think about that too long, you'd end up, you know, in a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
But what it does make you do is be incredibly meticulous about every decision you make. And if you don't know the answer to something, you go out and find it before you have a guess.
Yeah.
You know? And more so nowadays. When I first started building, I was more into the looks of the bike. I wanted to make a bike that looked like a cafe racer. Now I am 100% engineering.
Yeah.
And
your content even relates to that, to be fair.
Yeah,
I would say so. The fact that like there's a lot more like machining, like lathe work, and like putting pictures up of the pins that you've made for things.
Yeah.
I think you can kind of see it in your content as well, that there's a lot more. I wouldn't say seriousness, because it's always been serious, like in the respect of like the quality of the content and like what you're letting people see. Like nothing sketchy. Do you know what I mean? There's never any indication. I've never looked at any of your content and gone, oh fucking hell, like really, you know?
Well, I mean, you go back far enough. I mean, we were saying this earlier to each other as well. When I started my Instagram account, it was just for me to document me trying to build a motorbike, and then it started escalating. But I've left it all there.
Yeah.
So you can scroll right back on my profile grid and go right back to me building my first bike. The day I picked up the donor bike, the day I dragged it off the top of a scrap pile, you can go right back to when I got that back home and put it in the corner of a garage. And all I had was a bag of rudimentary DIY tools. And I borrowed a stick welder, an arc welder.
Wow.
And I built my first bike with that kit.
That's awesome.
As I was building the bike, my workshop started improving. So as I was building the bike, I was like, oh, I need this tool, I need that tool. I could really do with a welder. So I borrowed a stick welder. I can't believe I welded a bike frame with an arc welder. When I look back now.
Yeah.
And the more I built it, the more the workshop grows, and now I'm in this place.
Yeah. And I mean, and like this place is like, obviously, like we look through, there's a door and there's a bit that you can stand, and like literally got pretty much middle view all the way down in your workshop, and it's incredible. But I think like kind of the fact that you've gone from documenting your first build, which is obviously a build for you, which is different to building
just a hobbyist.
Yeah, it's definitely different from building a bike for a customer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And very much, I'm a massive believer in, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to worry about. And you wasn't claiming to be a professional fabricator back then. Like you said, it was very much documenting and learning.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I know we probably did speak about this last time, but at what point did all of a sudden go, shit, I can do this for other people? Like,
well, the first thing was, can I do it again? I mean, I always say I accidentally built a beautiful bike with my first bike.
Yeah.
And I put some photographs of it finished on Instagram, and it went viral. And, and I was like, right, I've built the bike now. It was successful. I don't know how I got to this point where managed to build, my first bike ended up being pretty. But my first question was, can I do it again? So I built, again for me, I built a sister bike. So I decided, instead of a calf racer, I'm going to use the same donor bike, so I can hone my skills that, I've learned on that bike. Same donor bike, but this time it's going to be a scrambler. And I made two. So I got a scrambler and a calf racer built on the same donor bike, different colors, different stance, big chunky tires, all that sort of stuff. And then I took them both to Malé.
Yeah.
Took them both to the Malé Mile. And the guys wanted them on display, so they ended up being on display there. And then people started asking me, can you build one for me? And I was like,
what was
that was in the back of my mind. Can you build one for me?
Yeah.
I was getting messages through, can you do that for me? All this sort of stuff. And I was like saying, no, I'm just building for me. I'm a hobbyist. But then I thought, I need to build something else. So I've built two bikes on the same donor bike. Can I do something else? And that's where the Northman came in.
Right.
I knew I wanted to build try and build a boutique bike, like as high end as I could possibly afford. So I sold those two bikes to fund both up for sale, and used that money directly to fund the Northman.
Yeah.
I got halfway through the Northman and somebody bought it.
So I remember that. And obviously it becomes a little, was it under the agreement that it was built how you wanted it to be built? And the guy literally was like, you've seen what I've built. I'm not changing the requirements. Was that the agreement you had with?
I'm lucky that people trust me. I've had one or two clients over the years that have been very specific about what they want.
Right.
Okay. And that always ends in disaster. I have had to have very difficult conversations with these clients to say, look, we can't do that.
No.
Either it's not safe or it's not going to work. Or I can say, I don't agree with it aesthetically, but that's the customer choice. So I've only had two difficult builds really in all of the ones that I've done, and both of them have been because the client had a very specific idea of how they wanted it to look. So I was building to their design.
Right.
my best work by far is when I am left to create.
When you're left alone, yeah.
Vision, and I'm lucky that most of my clients see that and they understand that, and I don't have to tell them. They just say, they just say, I see what you do. Can you do that for me?
Yeah.
And they will leave, apart from things like tank color and color of the seat or whatever, they will leave the creative process to me, and they will not, and they know they're going to get they're going to get the best work out of me.
Yeah.
Like this one up here, the one of my
Hockenheim.
That's the Hockenheim.
Yeah.
That was Brent. He saw the Barnfield at the show. He says, "Can you build me one similar to that?" And then he just left me. He just goes, "Just run with it." So luckily he had a very good budget, and that's kind of my magnum opus, I guess, really.
So that for you at the moment is the
best bike.
The best bike you built.
Yeah, the Northman was a stunner.
Yeah.
I rode that again recently. You
did some service work to it.
Recommissioned because it had been sat still on display for a long time. So I recommissioned it and then took it out for a cheeky ride while I had it with the customers. Agreement on that. And I loved it. I forgot how exciting that little bike is.
Yeah, that's
for 500.
I was going to say 500, 550.
Yeah.
Because you've done a CB 750?
I've done a couple. I've got one on the bench now. I'm about.
I see the motor on the side.
I'm about to do a CB 750K 1976.
Wow.
Which I'm excited about. The other 750 I did was a dual overhead cam, and they're horrible things. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
Do you think you're going to, because obviously at the moment, like the cafe scene's kind of, it's dying down, isn't it?
I don't think it is.
You don't think so?
No. I think
they're moving.
I think the new wave custom scene is still very much alive. I mean, obviously it had a boost in COVID, like everything, but I think the new wave custom scene is still very much alive. There's still some builders putting out, and the shapes change.
Yeah, I'm on about the conventional cafes, like the cafe scene. I mean, I think it's going more into a retro racer now.
The cafe scene, and all of a sudden it comes in waves. Right?
Yeah.
So we had nothing but cafe racers for a while, and then it was scramblers, and all you ever saw was street scramblers and scramblers, and then it was flat trackers. And there's still quite a few, and they
all come together.
But they keep coming around, and you keep getting different every year. You go down to the Bike Shed show, there's something different, and you see something different, and then everyone gets on it, and starts creating their own versions of that. But the minimalist stripped back calf is a design when it's done well. Yeah. It's a classic design. See, like, and there's a reason they've been doing that they've been popular since the 1960s.
See, what I've noticed, what I've noticed with your bikes, and what the only thing that ever frustrated me with the Jap cafe scene was, and you're not one of them, is like people would go to the lengths of building these incredible bikes, well-engineered subframes, like beautiful work, machine parts, beautiful tank, beautiful seat. But they literally would not care about the end of the tank and the seat. They would be offset. There'd be gaps. The seat was coming in at a different angle. And like, obviously, we got your computer in the background where you got the Northman and you got the Hockenheim, and none of your builds have that issue. And that was something I never liked about the Jap cafe scene.
Yeah, the thing is, it's all built on the aftermarket part scene, isn't it? So so there was a big flood of aftermarket parts that you can buy. And even me, to a certain extent, when I built my first bike, I was under the stupid illusion, or the very naive illusion, that I'll just get some aftermarket parts and throw them on this bike. Yeah. Take off a few bits and it'll be beautiful. Yeah. I fast realized as soon as I started that it wasn't the case. I also fast realized that I was doing a restoration at the same time as I was doing a modification, which is now, that's what I do all the time now. But yeah, the thing is with the aftermarket part scene, not every part fits every bike, and you have to have a very keen eye for design to do this properly. You've got to be an artist and a designer, and you've got to have a clear image of the bike, how it looks. You've got to choose the right donor, Because you try and do a Suzuki, you try and do a GN 125, turn that.
Yeah, because the frame bows completely, doesn't it?
Before.
We've had it.
If the skeleton's not right in the first place, you're on a hell of a job to make it pretty.
Yeah.
And I've still, in all these years, never seen a pretty GN 125.
I've seen it. So I've seen where people have gone to the length of literally cutting the whole subframe out. Yeah, and going straight back to going straight into a flat base, but like I think obviously that is showing that it can be. I think the only time a GN kind of fits is a brat. They work as a brat style because obviously because of the bow you can make a fiberglass.
Kind of.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean you could bob them, just get rid of the subframe, just put a bobber seat on them. But there's so many of these. The K100.
Yeah.
I said I wanted to build. If I'm going to build a K100, I want to do it right.
Yeah.
And to do them right like that, you do have to rebuild the entire subframe.
Yeah.
So there's really not much left of the original frame, and you've got to be confident enough in your fabrication skills to be able to do that. Lots of people fall down on K100 builds because they don't rebuild the subframe. They just keep it as it is. And again,
and the geometry
looks like it's awful.
Yeah.
I mean, the bones of them are not right.
Yeah, so you
most K100 builds fall apart because they don't go that extra mile.
Yeah, and that's like literally because obviously people can't see, but like we got your name's gone. That's the Northman on the computer. But what I like about it is that the transition between the tank and the seat is bang on point.
It's all I spend way too long probably on my seat pans. And you go to a show, Tom Hurley is a genius upholsterer. He's the best in the business by a long way, and I've said that many times. So he does all my seats, right? But even he can't do anything with a crap seat pan.
No.
You've got to, I spend hours getting seat pans right, sculpturing the steel. They're all either steel or aluminium. I sculpture the steel right round the tank, and doing that on a K100 with the tank shape for that, I mean, took hours and hours of work to try and trace those tank lines. So when you slide that seat up, it perfectly mirrors the front of your tank. Stuff like that, hopefully that's what people pay me for. Because I think that attention to detail. I'm not just, everything is bespoke, everything's custom made, everything's a one of one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't. I've built two K100s, but they are different.
Yeah.
I think every bike I build, there's something different. There's never two exactly the same.
See what I did when I got my, like I said earlier, I got 1987 ZX10, obviously aluminium frame, horrible frame, but my friend had the bike there and I pestered him and was like, what are you doing with it? And he gave me the bike. I know we spoke about this last time, but when I did, because I literally used an eBay seat, everyone was buying them with the hump, all in leather. At one point they were about £25. And then I bought, I was gifted the seat, kind of hence like talking back earlier where we're paying forward, which is kind of when we're talking off air about the way my website's going to work, is you can't forget these things. You've got to give opportunities forward and things like that. But going back to, so I was gifted the bike, gifted the seat, gifted the loop with the LEDs in, and all I did is went out and bought metal to build a subframe. My brother-in-law was at Tech College in Leeds. He machined me some adapters so I could go from an aluminium frame to a steel subframe. But where I've always been so key to having the seat flow into the tank, what I did with mine is where on the ZX10 tank, it was pressed in for the normal seat to originally take that shape. So, where they press them in and the seat kind of butts up to it. I sheet metaled that, and then I sheet metaled a piece over it. So the seat flowed, first off, it slotted into the tank, but it was so important for me to aid off the bottom rail to flow into the seat.
Right. Yeah, I get exactly what you mean. And on my entry level bikes, like the little CGs, the 125s and stuff, the budget doesn't allow for me to go and have Tom Hurley create a seat for every bike I do.
Yeah.
So I still go for the off the shelf prefab, aftermarket seats for those bikes. But the trick to making them work is you design the subframe for the seat.
Yeah.
So I've developed a way of doing the CG subframes that make those aftermarket seats
Look like it was perfect.
Sit perfectly on the bike. The rail follows every contour on the seat, and they go right up to the tank.
Because people pay attention to that. I was just flukily lucky that this eBay loop with the LEDs in fit perfectly to the eBay rail, and then even like down to, because my ride height's about 4 inches higher, because anyone that remembers the original ZX10 they were notoriously low and fat. Like Kawasaki made the mistake of releasing the GPZ 900 about the same time. They were a bit cheaper, they were narrower and equally as quick. And the ZX10 back then was not a super bike, it was a sports tourer. So they were really low, really fat, and they just, even down to the clip-ons where they rose off the yoke, you know, the old 80, and it was just horrible. So anyway, I went 4 inches higher. A lot of my things at work was accidental. So like, even down to the way I bent the rails, the top rails, the original airbox fit in. And it looked like I knew what I was doing. I absolutely winged
the accidents.
Well, I winged the fuck out of all of it.
Yeah, well, you know think that, but there's probably your subconscious was making decisions when you know, and that was for me, was like all of that stuff. And I think for example, on my build with the ZX10, it needed clip-ons to finish it. Straight bars, like Renthal style bars, it made it look a bit Street Fighter-y. So I called it a hybrid. Front end Street Fighter, back end's cafe, because it is a cafe rear seat on it. Very minimalistic, but yeah, it was just I was just so lucky to be gifted all of this stuff. And you know, I think kind of, but like we were talking earlier, you know, obviously I know we spoke before about obviously some of your troubles in the past, but like I really believe that everything happens for a reason. Like, I think I only started podcasting because I felt there was a gap missing for the little dudes, the dudes that only had like 50 followers, not even so much followers, like that they felt that they were not confident enough to stand up and be proud of what they've done, because there was a space already for the discovery builders, for people like you that are going to like now one of the greatest shows in the world, which is the Bike Shed show, you know, to get invited. You guys have earned the right to have that almost elite level, but nevertheless, like, I've been able to come from the big, like just like you have with your building career, but you've obviously so driven to learn and to progress and to improve. I've kind of come from putting my face in front of a camera because I felt that there was a gap, to now being able to sit with people like yourself. Very cool.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it all kind of comes full circle, doesn't it? You know,
I mean, it's very nice what you say. Thank you. But I don't want to, and it's similar to what you're saying. I always say, you know, I'm a professional builder now. I've built a business around it, and this is what I do. And I have strived for every bit of knowledge I've had, but I don't want to forget my roots. And I always say I keep one foot in the shed.
Yeah.
So I'm in this beautiful, fancy workshop now.
Incredible workshop.
With all the tools and all of the, you know, machining and equipment that I've got now. But I don't want to lose the creativity that I had when I was with the shed.
Yeah.
You know, I did like I said, my first bike with an arc welder and a bag of DIY tools. You have to get creative when you're dealing with that. When you can't, like you were saying, like using like a biscuit tin for a battery box or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, those sort of creative ideas that you think out of necessity. And I think it's important not to lose that creativity.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I get to do that with, you know,
a bigger budget,
premium sheet steel and 6061 aluminium. But I still have to get creative. Sometimes when I start a job, I've got no idea how it's going to pan out, and I just start. Yeah. And I trust myself to figure it out as I'm doing it. Yeah. You know.
And I think that's where so I think regardless of whether you're just a shed builder and your challenges were learning how to use an arc welder, learning how to build stuff, that your new challenge is is now not forgetting where you've come from, to continue that hunger, because it could probably become easy to go, oh well, I'm used to building 20,000+ pound builds now, and I'm used to being stood next to, obviously, like you've been able to work with some incredible company, like, you know, well, I'm used to being able to chuck on a Spada jacket for a photo shoot with a bike that I was paid to build. But by not forgetting where you've come from, that you still, like you said, keep your one foot in the shed. It's like, that's your new challenge, is like you've not forgot, because it would be easy to forget, you know, where you've come from. You could get lost,
like
in,
we were saying earlier about paying it forward and helping others out, because I'm very grateful for where I am. I've had a lot of help and support, and yeah, you can't forget that.
Yeah.
And I still walk in here, you know, every morning, and you know, there's the fear of it being taken away,
which is a drive.
Or not being able to maintain it, because I went at this like a you know, a dog with a bone till I got it. And then you get it and you go, right, how do I maintain this now? I've got to find another grand a month. I've got to do, you know, all the legalities of it. So there is that, but
that also leaves you no choice but to continue to level up, right?
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
You've got to be all in, and, you know, which you clearly are. I mean, even Saturday, like all the manuals, like, just, you know, you can just, everything's just, you live, eat, breathe, and sleep this.
Shelf. There's a shelf full of Haynes books of lies opposite us.
Right. Books of lies.
Books of lies.
Why are you saying that then?
Well, because, you know, I put this right. They're brilliant things. They're brilliant resources, right?
Yeah.
But they're often really broad. So often they cover about 12 models of the same bike over about 10 years. I bought one for the CB200, right?
Yeah.
But it covers the CB125, the CB175, the CB200, and the CB200 twin, and it does that over 10 years. So trying to find the bit that you want, you know, is really hard. What the Haynes manuals are perfect for is fluid capacities and torque settings. The electrical diagrams are fairly good, so I use those quite a lot. But I wouldn't necessarily trust one for rebuilding an engine or doing those sort of things.
And what's making you say that? What, in what respect? Just because of tolerances, or
no? You just get some dodgy information. They're
right.
It's a bit of a nickname that been given.
Right.
The Haynes Books of Lies.
Of Lies.
Yeah, it's just a bit of a jokey thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't take everything.
You can't take everything gospel. Like, it's in there. It's got to be right.
And like I sometimes I dismantle a bike 6 months before I get around to building it, right? So I couldn't remember how these forks went together. So I thought I'll just have a look in the Haynes book, and then I couldn't. They didn't have anything to do with the 1974 CB200. They just had a diagram for 125.
You said earlier that's only a two-year production line, right? That specific model of your CB.
Yeah, they made it in 1974 and then cancelled it in 1976 and brought a new model out. So getting parts for that has been hard work. And I've made a lot of them. You know, I made a lot of parts because you can't get them. Yeah,
and that's kind of like I was saying to you. I've got a 1981. It's either 81 or 83. I'm sure it's 81 CB125 Super Dream, and I think. Am I right in saying you hadn't seen a CB125 Super Dream, or have you seen? Did you know they existed? The 125 Super Dream.
No.
Yeah. So like, I've had many disputes with people.
Yeah.
Like, obviously back when I first, I mean, it's still like halfway through its fabrication stage. It's been sat there for 8 years now. But back when I first got it, I looked a lot younger. I didn't have this big beard, and I didn't look a bit older. And I'd have these older dudes. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Yeah. And I'm Googling it, like, look, literally they did it. No, they didn't. Only made a they made a 250 and 400.
I actually own one.
Do you know what I mean? They're going, no, they didn't. Only made a 250 400 with the comp star wheels. I'm like, look, they did a 125 monoshock, twin carb, power inline twin with the CX style wheels. So they're effectively a 3-piece wheel, aren't they? Where they're riveted onto the rim like the CXs
I've got a set down there.
Oh yeah,
for the 750.
Yes,
the same ones on 750. Yeah.
So
and that's the next thing.
They're a ugly wheel, aren't they?
Is dismantle those and powder coat them, but you have to put them back in exactly the same order.
Do you like the wheel? I don't like them.
I'm not a massive fan of them. I prefer spokes on
Yeah.
a classic bike. I've always preferred spokes.
That's another thing you're known for, though,
the
isn't
only
it?
alloys that I really like is that there's a few that they do for the K100s that are beautiful, but and especially the ones I put on that on the Hockenheim. But yeah, I'm spokes. I'm all about the spokes.
Yeah, but you'll know, like, that's one of your specialities. I remember when I interviewed you last time, like, you were like, I've got the recipe down. I'm not saying, I know where I get my bits from. You know, it took me a while to get them, because obviously you buy the separate spokes, and you buy the spokes from a company.
Are you talking about the 72s? Like
where you're known for like the multiple spoke and the fat spokes.
No, you can buy them off the shelf like that, right? But they're chrome. They're getting hard to get actually now, but I don't really do those bikes much anymore. The problem is that you can buy them off the shelf, but they're put together very hastily in a factory in China.
Yeah, that's it.
They are not safe to put on the bike. You have to do a lot of work on them to make them, to bring them back up to scratch for UK standards. I buy them as a complete unit, but then I strip them completely. I recoat them, repowder coat them. All new bearings, all new spacers, all new spindles.
Right.
And then I relace them, and then I send them to my wheel guy, who tightens and trues them.
Right.
And they're, because the 72 radial spokes. Radial spokes are weird. They all go in the same direction on one side and the opposite direction the other.
No, I've never messed around with spokes.
These wheels shouldn't work. But because there's so many of them spokes, there's so many spokes in it, it's almost like solid disc when you get it tight. They are a fascinating beast.
I mean, they look awesome. They do look cool when you've done them.
And they've all got twisted spokes in them as well.
Yeah.
They're all twisted individually. So I thought they were worth persevering with. And I after doing about 6 or 7 sets, I started really getting into getting it,
and that's the thing, like with Chinese bits, it's like a lot of people chat shit on Chinese stuff, and to some extent I can understand, but like for me, for example, my Lex motor that I've drained you about several times over a few years was like that engine. I've owned that bike. I got it for my 21st birthday. I've had it 12 years now, and when I rode it, and when I go through phases where I kind of reincarnate it and put it back out on the road, I abuse the living daylights out of that engine. And it's 125, it's flat out everywhere. And mechanically, I can honestly say, never ever failed. The only issues I ever had was electrics.
Yeah.
Now, I discovered how true it is, but then what I looked into, Chinese wiring is actually aluminium dipped in a copper solution. And to be fair, if you think about how copper corrodes, typically it corrodes green, right?
Right.
Now, if you ever look at Chinese terminals corroding, they corrode white. Aluminium corrodes in a white powder form.
Well, there is different types of corrosion in electrical stuff. I know often you buy Chinese parts, like tail lights and stuff like that, and you get tiny wires. Like, I mean, I'm getting old, so I struggle to see anyway, but by the time you've stripped away the silicon, or the rubber sleeve, there's like 3 strands left of the tiniest wire. And that's when electrical systems fail. I'm very careful about what electrical stuff.
I mean, and obviously, like
from overseas, if you like.
But it'd be different. Obviously, for you, it's different respect because that's a customer's bikes, right? It's like obviously, we spoke briefly earlier about the budget biker build off that obviously will host that I'm part, or that I'm kind of responsible for organizing, so to say. And I was reaching out to companies. I was like, look, we've got this going on. You've got £1,000 you can spend on a bike. The market value of the bike isn't allowed to exceed 2,000. That bit, and the reason for that is to stop people from having that one friend that's going to sell them a hot Sportster or something trick that's conventionally worth more money. So it's all about leveling the playing field. And then you've got £500 to spend on building it. And
so you got $2,000 for a donor bike?
No. So you got £1,000 for the bike.
£1,000 for the bike.
Market value isn't allowed to exceed 2,000.
Right,
what we end up having was a lot of people going, well, who's dictating what the market value is? And I've been replying with like marketplace.
Yeah, to stop somebody
eBay,
giving them the bike.
You know what I mean?
Too cheap.
And that literally, it's all about leveling the playing field. And then you've got so £1,000 to buy the bike. If it's been gifted to you, as long as it doesn't exceed the 2,000, great, you're on to a winner. Yeah, if you've got a box full of bits, of trickery bits, you just look up the average price of them. Like we had a lot of people really trying to analyze the rules and trying to find loopholes. And I get it.
Yeah.
But kind of where I was going with it was like, started reaching out to machine shops, and I was like, look, this is what we're doing. We're wondering if you'd be interested in donating a set of machined indicators. Obviously, you'd be mentioned in every single podcast with the custom culture blast off. Right. And the idea is that whoever wins a bag of goodies. You know, and obviously you would be mentioned every single episode, every tag, because every builder has to update a minimum one photo a month. So the publicity you get, you know. And one guy was reached out and he's like, well, I think you should ditch the budget side of it. And I'm like, but why? He said, well, you're going to encourage people building bikes on Chinese parts, and it's affecting us. And I'm like, well, mate, I built every one of my bikes off Chinese parts and donations. But I know where I stand with that. Like, I know that my indicator setup is never going to be anywhere near Moto Gadget, and I don't claim it to be. You know, I know I'm not building a bike selling it, like knowing that a customer's paying good money for that, and I'm using Chinese parts. I'm building a bike for me on the budget that I have. I'm a working family man who loves bikes, and it's about inspiring, because there are loads of people that are struggling just to get by, that love this culture, you know. And I think that long as you know where you stand and you're being honest, you've got nothing to worry about. Like, that's what I said earlier. And it was a shame that this guy couldn't see past, because effectively, like, yeah, you've got a business to run, but there's a place for everybody in this culture.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I mean, as a business person, I can understand. Where he's coming from with that. You know, it is difficult if his business is revolving around making, you know.
Like machine, like indicators out of machine parts.
His market, he's got a different market, right? I mean, not everyone can afford my boutique builds.
No, absolutely, but also, but there's some. So, for example, like the way I look at it is, there's going to be people out there, right, with deep pockets that all of a sudden, like you mentioned how you got into bikes about 7 years ago, but there wasn't really any mention of that beforehand. So all of a sudden, by the sound from what you said of your story, is all of a sudden you decided you wanted to build a bike. Now, you never knew what you know now. So typically you might have been led to using parts that you would never touch now. But where I'm going with it is, in my head, I envision somebody that potentially has deep pockets, that knows nothing about building bikes, and they might lean towards Chinese parts because everyone typically hears of eBay. But the idea is that person wins a bag of goodies and goes, no shit, this is actually what quality is. You know, and then continues to then order from you, right? You know, it's because
they couldn't see the bigger picture.
Do you know what I mean? And that was kind of where I was heading with it, was like, because there is a place for everybody, and typically we like to think that we do progress in our builds. Like, I've definitely progressed in my quality of build, and I don't build for people. You know, I only tinker with stuff for myself. But I'm still very much on a shoestring budget. And I really do believe, I mean, I've had it. Like, I've had it where I pulled up on the ZX10. Yes, I've been very lucky that I've been gifted all this stuff. But the point being is, my build that still doesn't exceed realistically $3,000 at most. And I've had several people walk past top end Harleys and take a photo of my bike. And I'm like, do you know what I mean? Because they might not know what they're looking at, right? Or like, but the idea is that I've been able to build this on a shoestring budget, as well as most of it being gifted. But like my indicators, for example, on the front of my ZX10, it's a piece of aluminium panel. I shaped it, and I've got daytime running lights in it. £7 off eBay. When I turn the indicator on, they strobe like the new Audi lights do, and nobody believes they were £7. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, they might not last every day, like if you're riding it every single day, and I wouldn't like to guarantee that it won't fail. But it was £7. and I super glued them.
It's the same as everything. You do with what you can afford.
Yeah.
I'm in a very lucky position that I get the budgets that I get now. If I was building for myself, I couldn't afford to spend, $1,500 to $2,000 just on a motor gadget electrical system. Certainly,
I mean, their stuff's incredible.
Put in a $3,500 Ducati front end on something, you've got to, you work with what you're label, and I'm in a very sort of privileged position nowadays where I get to work with the best stuff.
Well, obviously,
when I started on that first bike, I was trawling eBay, getting the AliExpress.
Yep.
Trying to find the cheap parts that look the best.
I mean, what I would definitely say is like, walking up and looking at your bikes, like the builds that you've got going on is like, you can see the quality in them, and that's what's so cool, is because it doesn't just look cool in a photograph. Like, it's even better when you look at them, like the detail, like you can see that, like the switches on the handlebars. Obviously, I'm assuming they're Motor Gadget switches as well. Are they not?
No, they are Motone, I think.
Okay.
Listen, I think you need like putting the parts aside, right? The pretty bikes, because anybody can throw money at a build, and I have been sort of passionate about this as well. I've seen people throw Motor Gadget and like big custom front ends, and chucking thousands and thousands of pounds at a build, and it still comes out ugly, right? Because
they haven't got that right vision.
Because it's how you design it and how you make parts work. So it doesn't matter whether you put in £500 switches or £20 switches.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work in the design, it doesn't work. And just throwing money at something isn't the answer.
No, definitely.
Right? Now, like I said, I'm lucky I get to work with big budgets. If you want the bike like the Hockenheim, you're looking 25k.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't work visually and you haven't got the design right and it's not well engineered, it'll look bad. And now I'm less about the parts and more about the engineering.
Yeah, because obviously like there's effectively, I guarantee you've looked at some of these bits that you've purchased and gone, I can actually make them now.
Well, yeah, or yeah, you can. And it's having the tools and the knowledge to do that. I was really lucky. A couple of years ago, I reached out to Minnovation Racing, and they changed everything for me. Minnovation Racing were the most successful team in the CRMC. That's the classic British, classic racing motorcycle club, right?
That's awesome.
The Minnovation were the most successful teams in the club's history. And they go all over the country like racing. And luckily, Minnovation, it's one of the only remaining proper works racing teams, right?
Right.
So,
okay.
The factory that specializes in making pressure valves and cooling systems for big industrial mining equipment, they have this works racing team, and they're based in Wakefield, just down the road.
Well, that's cool.
So I went to have a chat with them and see if I could do some work for them. And I got in there as a machinist. So I was going to do some machine hopping and then hopefully do some bits and bats on the bikes.
So learning how to machine, or you already knew?
I've done a bit of machine operating before. I mean, to be honest, operating CNC machines is just pressing buttons and feeding.
I mean, I've never touched one.
Learning how to feed them.
Right.
They're all pre-programmed in anyway. So you're just, you have to have a bit of knowledge about engineering, but, knowing how to feed a machine, knowing how to clean them out, start and stopping the programs, knowing what to do if things go wrong, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So sometimes I was working on the CNC machines, just keeping the factory going with the team. And all the time I was there, I'm chatting to Martin, who's the head of Innovation Racing, and talking about his bikes. Now they build from scratch. They build G50s and matchless G50s from scratch.
Wow.
Got all the original designs, and they build those to race. These things are just stunning. But they're all engineering. There's nothing on the bike just so it looks
right.
it
Yeah,
looks
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
They are race bikes built for the track, and they are solid engineering, right? And I learned so much. I'm so lucky. I was there for over a year. Martin is now an incredible friend of mine, like lifelong friend, like I was saying. And he let me in. He let me in, and he taught me stuff. And he doesn't do that with everybody, you know. And this machine shop, right? So it's got state of the art, big factory split in half, state of the art CNC, 5-axis mills and lathes and all that sort of stuff. One side, and then the other side is old school manual machining.
Oh, yes.
Right. So you've got lathes in there and milling machines that are 100 years old. And the guys in that side, I learned more from them, I think. No, I wouldn't say more than I did from Martin, because Martin's a constant inspiration. But I learned so much from those old school guys.
Yeah.
And they were all quite old, you know, all pushing retirement age. They must have had, between them, they must have had hundreds of years of engineering experience. And I used to love going in there and working with them, and I'd soak everything up, right? So all of their knowledge about, you know, materials and turning and milling. That's why I started using Ali bronze all the time, because I love it, and I think it's beautiful stuff, and it's strong, and it's
even the color into it, it's got
resistant. It's a really good alternative to stainless. So yeah, just listening to those guys, asking questions, learning how to be a machinist from them, and at the same time having Martin going to track days, seeing these beautiful machines out on the track, helping out, like learning from the bike side of it from them, and learning that function follows form follows function.
Yeah.
And if you engineer a bike right, it will look beautiful.
Yeah.
You know.
So do you think there's moving forward, do you see yourself building some stuff for the track?
I don't know what I would like. I'd love to build a track bike. At the minute, I'm confined by customers and what they want, and you know, because it's a business. I'd love the opportunity.
I mean, it's definitely like, I was lucky enough to go to the worship show in Leeds last year. It's the first one I don't know if you saw or anything of that.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to go, like literally loaded the kids up and off we went. Got to speak to Guy Martin outside, only a couple of minutes, but where I feel the scene's gone, it's gone retro racers, like these skinny, narrow fairings now. It's almost like the lads have built nice cafes and then remembered that they've got a Street Fighter dumped in the back of the shed.
Yeah.
And dug them out and then gone, right, okay, we've got something that's capable of 150 mile an hour, but some of the engineering side of it was questionable in the mid-2000s. You know, they worked. It's like they've taken these old Street Fighters apart and actually thought, right, now let's take this finesse boutique style of cafe approach and rebuild our Street Fighters into some retro modern.
Yeah.
You know, like I got to see Sticky Speed Shop's bikes. I mean, obviously you've seen them down at the Bike Shed show, and it was like, I was like, oh my God. Like, I mean, for me, the shrimp bike, I loved it. You know, the bike they had on display last year.
I'm trying to think.
It was like almost like a camo, pearl white, black with some funky striping on it, and it had like the shrimp pattern ghosted in it.
Right.
You would have seen it. It wasn't because obviously last year they had the front page bike, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
And the year before's bike was the shrimp bike they did with the slingshot, I believe it was.
Okay.
But that's kind of where I feel the scene's gone now, is that cafe bikes. They're building quicker bikes. Obviously, they're inline fours. Like they were already capable of 150 plus mile an hour back then, and they've like put more thought into the engineering side of it. You know, I'm not saying that obviously the cafe scene hasn't, because obviously you know better than me, you're still building customer bikes off of that scene. I just think that the racing scenes come bigger into it.
Well, I think,
or at least the look.
Yes, I get that, and I get what you mean now. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it comes in waves, and I'd love to see more of those like traditional track fairings, like on the classic race bikes. Yeah, but I like the ones
like the Rickman fairings and
60s and 70s. Yeah, those sort of I'm not a massive fan of modern sports bikes.
No, I'm
Never
not.
really was. I mean, my friend Bob has got some beautiful Ducatis and brand new BMWs, you know, that'll do 200 mile an hour out the box, and they are stunning bits of engineering.
Yeah.
But I'm not, it doesn't do it for me.
And to be honest, they're not riding them.
Like looking at a matchless G50,
yeah,
or, you know, a Norton, or like the classic Japanese Hondas that I like.
Yeah.
You know, they're not raw enough for me, you know. They're not like, sounds cheesy, but you know, when you feel like, it's all the smell of the fuel and the exhaust, and that feeling that you get.
The sound, the vibrations, it all hits different.
Yeah,
it all,
yeah.
You know, having rubber mounted engine.
I'm not bothered about going 200 miles an hour. You know, I'm about riding for enjoyment. I mean, I'm a builder first.
Yeah,
I'm a builder before I'm a rider. I know that, and some people scoff at it, but I enjoy the creative process of building a beautiful motorcycle.
Yeah,
and I do love riding. And I love riding a bike. There's nothing like feeling of riding a bike you've built yourself.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's just, you know, the first time I did that, that's why I got addicted to it.
And then when you pull up and people are looking at it and they're taking photos.
Yeah, I was building my first bike. While I was building it, I used to drive to work, and I used to be thinking, I can't wait to ride this bike down this road.
Yeah.
And that day when you do,
it just hits different,
terrified,
doesn't it?
You know. Because there's a terrifying thing about riding a bike you built yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Right, for the first time.
Fucking hell. Yeah, when you're hearing these weird noises.
Your first bike you built and it's rattling around, you're thinking, did I do that wheel bolt up right?
Oh, fucking hell, yeah.
Yeah. It is the best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
Because you really feel like you've made something. You know, you've made something of substance that works.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
that has a purpose. I could travel on this. Yeah,
it's and not it looks like cool as fuck.
It's not like painting a beautiful picture or creating a piece of music. There's something just really real about it.
Yeah,
you've created something, and you're.
And I don't know about you, like none of my stuff's ever built to be practical. Like nothing I have ever built has ever been practical. Chopping the back end off a bike and making a little stubby cafe, even if it's like when I built my 83 GP125, I used a belly pan off a Yamaha FZ6, turned it upside down, refiberglassed it, made my own seat. As soon as you rode it in the rain, it literally just missed the little bit of seat unit straight up the back of my shirt.
Well, yeah, like, there is that.
And I don't care.
I still make decisions.
You know?
Yeah, I don't like, as a rule, big mud guards.
No. Tyres got to be hanging out for me.
I hate number plates.
Yeah.
You know, they ruin the aesthetics of builds.
Yeah.
But, and it's quite a big but, nowadays, like I said, I'm engineering. I've learned a lot from the cafe racer scene. Because, you know, in the original, when I say cafe racer scene, I don't mean the new wave customs. I mean the 1960s cafe scene, when it was all about stripping everything off the bike. And it says on my website, my philosophy is if it doesn't make the bike go fast or stop fast, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's that philosophy. And that's where the minimalist comes from. You know, it's getting rid of the heavy batteries. It's getting rid of the airbox. It's getting rid of anything on there that adds extra weight. It's taking a stock bike and making it as quick as you possibly can. So there's a practical element for chopping off a subframe. Yeah. You know, because it's extra weight. You don't need it. If you're not taking a pillion passenger. No. So that philosophy, coupled with, you know, working for a race team,
that's the right ingredients, right?
So that's like, you start figuring out, you know, there is a purpose to this, and if I get it right, the end result will be beautiful. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, definitely, it's definitely the right ingredients, isn't it?
Yeah.
But none of that will ever give you the eye, the vision. Do you know what I mean? Like, it gives you purpose to the vision.
Yeah.
But like, you're like, the fact that like it might have been easier at some points to not concentrate on the transition from the seat to the tank, but you knew that was critical for the look you wanted.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've always had an eye for design. I've always been a creative, if you like. I know when something looks right in my mind, and I know when something looks wrong. So I've usually aesthetically, I've usually built a bike before I start it. So I've usually built it in my mind before I start. But I don't do renders and I don't do drawings.
No, you just go.
I just have it in my mind and I set about doing it. I mean, lots of people, and that's what I said about my customers trusting me to do what I do. And they don't ask for drawings or renders or anything like that. They just,
that must be. How does that feel?
It feels brilliant, but I know I do my best work when I'm left to it, and they can see I do my best work when I'm left to it. I'm in a lucky position in some respects because I can say no to a customer if I don't want to build them a bike.
Right. Okay.
And because I know, and not because I've got tons of money, because I'm not. I'm always after the deal.
Yeah.
But because I know it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it'll cause me more pain and more expense in the long run.
Because you've built up names.
Is that I agree on a, if I get the, if I agree on a price, but the customer is one of those people that keeps pushing for more, and they want it done this way and this way and this way, then the price goes up. And if I've already agreed on a quote and then I'm under pressure to do extra, it doesn't work as a business model that way. And I'm not doing my best work because I'm not building the bike as I think it should be built.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can sniff that out. I can, if somebody approaches me for a bike build, I can usually sniff those people out that are gonna, not gonna trust me, not, and the builder client relationship is vital.
Yeah.
Right.
The trust, the time, the patience, I
mentioned about Brent, a wonderful customer who was just really supportive, and patient, understands that there's a process, understands the difficulties, because he builds high-end real estate. He had
it's the same concept, really.
He's built a building firm from the ground up.
Wow.
And now he does high-end real estate, like building company. So he understands that. Yeah. That creative process too. So yeah, the client builder relationship is a vital one.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I know a tattooist that will literally, as soon as the client first time, well, they never become a client. Some of these people that they'll start off the message, how much for a sleeve? And he'll literally turn around and say, "I'm really sorry, I'm not the artist you're looking for."
Yeah,
and he'll literally politely just say no. Like,
yeah, well, because, I turn, you're absolutely right. I turn a lot down because somebody rings me up and says, "I've got a bike.
I've started doing this."
Yeah, and it's like it ends up being half. I have very firmly, right from the start, said I wouldn't take on a lot of finished projects. And I've made that exception once and it didn't really work out, but I'm definitely not doing it again.
Yeah.
When somebody comes, 25 grand, I keep pointing up here to this picture. I hope you can see it.
Well, they can see a bit of it, I think.
The 25 grand's a lot, but that does include the donor bikes.
Yeah.
I insist that I source a donor bike. So you come to me with an idea for the build, and then I go shopping for a donor bike, because I know what I'm looking for. I know what I need. I know what I don't need. I know what's going in recycling. What I'm like picking a bike that's got a front brake caliper on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I know what's going to go through the process what I'm going to build. So that way I can 100% guarantee my work. If I'm taking on somebody else's bike, then unless there is a specific agreement with the client says, right, we're trusting that this engine works for this budget, we're not taking that apart. You're paying me for a cosmetic rebuild and that's it.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful that you put that.
Yeah.
Very
clearly. And it all gets put into.
And if this bike, if the engine blows up 3 weeks after and you're not paying for an engine rebuild, that's not on me.
Yeah.
Right.
So you do the engine rebuilds as well?
Yeah.
Well,
if I've bought the donor bike,
yeah,
I will I will buy an engine. I will buy a donor bike that's the best ones. You know, if you buy one that's MOT'd and it's running and you know it's good,
It's always a good start.
The best donor bikes, the ones you ride into the workshop.
Yeah.
Right. Because you know you're on a halfway decent starting point. If any engine work needs doing, even if it needs a full rebuild, but I try and buy donor bikes that, you know, I know don't require an extensive rebuild. There's no point in, to a certain extent, splitting a crankcase, especially on something like a BMW K100 that's built for doing 200,000 miles.
Yeah.
If it's only done 50,000, there's no point in splitting that crankcase.
Yeah.
They'll get a top end rebuild.
Yeah.
Right. So it'll be all new pistons, you know, valves, everything. But yeah, there's no point in splitting a crank on an engine like that if you don't need to. You sent me off track now. I can't remember what I was saying.
We're about obviously when you'll get a project where it will come in, like ideally running is always a good start, but you know what you're getting type of thing.
And that way I can fully guarantee my work.
Yeah.
You know, taking on somebody else's finished project and I'm an instant sort of sorry.
Because obviously like you work so hard, like you end up becoming a victim of your own success, and the victim side of it is that you can't afford to drop the nut on it. You know, you're going to the bike shed show, you're going to these prestigious events where you know that people are looking at your stuff, know what they're looking at.
That's it. I've got to put something out I'm proud of, right?
And so you know what they're looking at.
I don't want to be building pigs and have them out. It's all about representation.
Yeah.
It's all about, you know, reputation.
Yeah, exactly. Which is the product. You know, you've become a victim of people are now expecting that from you. You know,
build bikes I'm proud of, and that are my brand of bikes.
Yeah,
I don't like using that word.
No, but obviously people can recognize.
But yeah,
that's one of your builds.
People see that, you know, that's obviously a Jonathan All bike. You know, it's because I have a very sort of individual style, I guess. So I don't want to put anything out that's not up to scratch. You know, and I have, so that's why I try and keep creative control. Other than, like I said, I mean, obviously the customer wants to decide what color they're going to have it, what sort of style, you know, ride height, but they leave everything else to me, which is lucky, and a privileged place to be in.
I mean, what I kind of always noticed with your bikes was it almost has this, like, I think kind of with the way you do the seats and that, there's an element of organicness to it.
It's real materials.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's this element of like organic. Yeah. Like it's I
mean, the Hockenheim had real Chesterfield leather.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you can see like this.
I want to be able to, you know, smell the leather on the seat. You know, when I'm choosing paint, you know, when I choose a painter, I want to know what materials he uses and what I want to go for. You know, I want somebody that can do that gloss finish. Yeah. So the shine is like really deep. Yeah. You know, and I want the certain things that ooze quality. You know, and when you're building a high-end bike, it's those things people notice when you walk up to it and you can smell the leather. You know, you can see this. You know, the quality of the finish on them, and that's vital. So yeah. The materials are important. Yeah. Like I said, I will take, even though Ali bronze is 3 times more expensive than stainless steel. I mean, if you want to buy a meter of Ali bronze bar, you're probably looking about 100 quid. Right. Yeah. So, you know, but using it, you know, it's a difference in there's so many reasons, like I said, about using it for engineering purposes, but it's a beautiful thing, and people notice when you've made even making a drop pin for a foot peg. Yeah, that's like out of Ali bronze, and it becomes a feature. It becomes a feature, definitely. And people they glint at it because there's this gold thing shining at them, you know. So I love putting little accents like that. And that's the thing, like you're playing up against big hitters. Like these things matter. Like you're not building a bike for the bike shed show just to go, well, yeah, it's safe, it's work, it's clean, it's brand new built. But like you're rolling into it's a you know what I mean? I feel like I'm in competition. I mean, like when I started, for sure, like I was like trying to emulate other builders and stuff. But now I think I don't feel like I'm in competition with everybody. I feel like we're all sort of in it together.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I'm in competition with anybody, it's me. I want to be better than I was last year. And that's, I think that's the best mindset to be.
Yeah.
I love seeing other people's builds. Often there's two. Have you been down to the bike shed show?
Not yet. No, hopefully this year, so hopefully.
There's two sides of it. And I've been very lucky to get into to be in the pro category. And when I first went with the Northman, I had to go through an application process. Now I'm lucky that
they kind of know that what you're going to turn up with.
If I don't put a bike in, Gareth rings me up and says, "How come you've not got a bike in?" And I'm very privileged to be in that position.
Yeah.
I messaged him the other day. Gareth's the curator of the show and the shed. And I hope you don't mind me saying this. I said, "Do you mind if I put a late entry in this year? I've got a bike, but as always, I'm running behind." And he just wrote me this one line. He said, "I'd approve a frame on the bench from you, mate."
Wow.
And I was like, that's
when you're like,
that's a nice position to be in.
Because he's got that show is insane.
He trusts me. But there's two sides of the bike shed, right? There's the pro category that only has a couple of hundred sections in it, places in it. And then you've got shed row. I think it's it's got less than a couple hundred. Then you got shed row, which is all about shed built bikes and hobbyists, right? So I love walking around shed row.
Grassroots.
So I will go and put my bike in. I was lucky enough to be with 6 other bikes in the Motorrad room. So I was in the BMW room last year.
Wow.
And there was out of nearly 100 BMWs in the show, there's only 6 of us got chosen to be in the Motorrad room. So I felt very privileged for that. But I spent most of my time just wandering around shed row, and there's always something, there's always something. That is such a clever idea. And I'm one of those geeks that's like, I'm under the bike and
trying to see how it works, see how they've done it.
Something will catch my eye, and I was like, and that's ingenious. It's like I said before about keeping one foot in the shed.
Yeah.
And that creativity.
So have you walked around shed row and gone, they're going to go somewhere, that builder, whoever's built that, if that's what they want, can you?
Yeah, some of them, because this is another thing we were talking about, right? I'm a firm believer that anybody with time and resources can build something pretty. If you are a creative person, and I'm proof of this, right? I just decided I was going to try and build a bike, and I had all the time in the world, and I had a full-time job, so I could put money into it when I needed to. And I took my time and I built something pretty.
Yeah.
Right. I think anyone can do that if you're committed to it. The trick is being able to keep, when you start thinking about doing it as a business, all of a sudden you've got a budget and you've got a deadline.
Yeah.
Can you still build a pretty bike? Can you still keep it to the same standard, and still be able to churn them out? Build a bike in 3 months to this budget, build a bike in 6 months to this budget.
Yeah.
12 months for a 25 grand boutique build, because they take forever. The work that goes into them. So can you still do that? And I think, so yes, some of the bikes in the shed row should be in the pro category without a doubt. They are good enough to be in the pro category.
Right.
But they've been built in somebody's shed over a number of years.
Yeah, exactly.
Projects, or they've been evolving, over many years. They might, it might be the same bike that's changed 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
And just because somebody has perfected it over time,
Yeah.
And some of them are stunning. Yeah. And some of them are, are good, if not better than the ones in the pro categories. But you've got to understand, like I said,
they're different. It's a different game.
Pros are working to budgets and deadlines and business, So, and they're still checking out top quality bikes. But I've been lucky enough that all of my bikes have been in the pro category.
That's insane, isn't it? I mean, like I say, obviously, I think that's how, obviously, when the algorithm put out your stuff on my phone back in the day, was when you were doing the CGs, like it was the way like with the leather straps and like with the way the seat was and like this very like prestigious. Like, I think you were even using a different style of tank. It was never a conventional CG tank.
It's just the frame. That's all I use on those bikes is the frame and engine.
Yeah.
Everything else is either manufactured or, aftermarket.
Yeah.
You know,
and that was definitely like you could just see that everything was definitely thought out, and like even down to like old fashioned paint, like as in the color scheme of the like it was like the greens
colors,
and the classic
green,
you know what I mean.
You know, really
I think you did some
blacks.
Yellows. I think you did
one yellow one. That was the client, because I always let the client choose the colors.
It's almost like a mustardy yellow, I think.
One of my favorites was that yellow one, but it was mustard yellow.
Yeah.
And I said to the client, "Are you sure?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm absolutely positive." And I've never built a yellow bike before. And we went and we did yellow. It was only the tank. The rest of it was black. So we've got this beautiful sort of gloss black bike with a bright mustard yellow tank.
Yeah.
And because I think the quality of the paint, the gloss finish.
Yeah.
That's what made it. Could have done it in any color really, and it still looked nice. But because it was black and it just had this bright yellow, beautifully done, it really worked, and it ended up being one of my favorites.
Like what I think so cool, what I like so much, obviously being that I've had the opportunity to look at your projects on the table, is, and I've already said this, but like it's easy to make a bike look great on any side. On a camera, anything can look great effectively.
Yeah.
But to be able to make it for it to look even better in real life, like the quality, you know, just like you say, even though you've painted the middle of the engine yourself and powder coated the outside, like you were very proud of the fact that like I didn't difference. Like I didn't know that the middle you'd painted and the side casing was powder coated.
Yeah.
Like that's
that's
awesome. Do you know what I mean?
A painter, it's all down to prep and technique, right? Painting. And I don't spray tanks. I would, because just like I don't upholster seats, because there are people out there that are at the top of the game that have been either upholstering seats or painting tanks for their entire professional career. And why not use them?
Exactly.
Right? And I'm in a position to do that, so I can subcontract some of the best people to do that. But I do paint my own engine blocks, and I stand by it. People are like, "Well, why would you paint? You can Cerakote, you can powder coat." I don't trust powder coat on crankcases. I've Cerakoted a number of engines, or had Cerakoted done on a number of engines, and it's not infallible. It does look great. It's got its place.
I like the factory finish to a Cerakote. I mean, I would. To be fair, I was actually thinking of getting the side casings on mine done.
Very much relying on the person who does it. You know that because there was a big craze about it, and all the powder coaters started saying, "Right, we're going to do Cerakote now," but didn't really understand.
Yeah, you got to have the right mixtures, and the cleaning procedure is insane.
But paint's the same, right? If you and I've kind of perfected this engine block paint system through trial and error.
Yeah.
And I've now got a system where I've got a primer that works perfectly with the color coat, which works perfectly with the lacquer.
Yeah.
Right. So I do a 3-coat system, but it is 10% that.
Oh, it's prep work.
The rest of it is prep, and this is what people don't understand. They come unstuck and they go, "Why? I've just sprayed my engine with the stuff that you said, and it looks terrible."
Yeah.
The reason mine looks so good is because I spend weeks getting every single bit of dirt, and I go right back to the aluminium in every fin, you know, on a barrel.
Yeah.
Right back to the polished aluminium, and when I've finished doing that, and I've cleaned it, you know, I've taken it back to within an inch of its life. I then heat treat it, and I get the not settling, sorry, that's too hot. I get the blowtorch out, map gas on it.
Yeah, because the metal releases oil.
Yeah,
it releases stuff.
And I get all of that oil and fuel that's been soaking into that aluminium, and I burn it all out. and then I go at it again. And before I paint it, I bring the engine up to room temperature, so it's nice and warm, so it's not sweating, because aluminium sweats, right?
Yeah.
So if you go from cold to hot, it starts sweating out, and that's going to screw your paint up as well. So you need to make sure that that's all out. You need to warm your engine block up, then hit it with the
with your
primer, and then wait, patient. Thin layers,
build it up, be patient,
build it up over time, let each layer dry for 24 hours. If is best. It's better to be longer than quick, and it takes time. I mean, I've done all-nighters down here because I've been painting, and waiting 6 hours, getting up, putting down another coat, waiting 6 hours, getting
that's
up,
crazy,
putting down another coat before a show, just to get it right. So but as you've seen, you can achieve. You can achieve an incredible finish.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have known. I literally, I'm not just saying it like I wouldn't have known.
Yeah,
like I always knew you painted your engines, because I remember years ago asking you, and I think you posted a picture on it was either on your story or something. I remember you make your own bungs, and I remember you telling me like you'd made your own cork bung.
Oh, right, for plugging up all the holes when you're doing it. I mean, I've got a bag full of made, making sure.
Because I think I remember asking you, like, well, how did you do that? And you're like, well, I think I'll wash it, however you'd explained to me in the messages ages ago. But no, I mean, the attention to detail and everything is
crucially, when you get the paint system right, then you've got longevity of it as well. So it's not peeling off like the first time you hit a break. That it's actually a really durable system. It's long lasting, and it will stay with the bike for as long as as long as you go, as long as as long as you're not throwing handfuls of gravel at it.
No, I mean, I've never had paint come off an engine. I mean, I did. So currently, the casings on my 125 at the moment, they're done in like a patina defect. So I'd already had them black anyway. Then I hit the whole tank, the whole side casing with a red oxide. Then I did another black on top, and I deliberately just sat there with wet and dry, going through and making patterns. And I did the tank the same process. And I lacquered the casings, and never flaked up, but it lacked that depth. Like it lacked that top. You could tell it had been done by someone in a shed. Do you know what I mean? And obviously that's what effectively I think most builders want to move away from, right? Is like you want it to look. So I like powder coat, but I don't like it on casings.
Well, you see, I do.
It has that.
I paint the crankcase and the barrels, but I powder coat all the side cases and the rocker covers.
That's where I like the idea of. It's interesting you say about Cerakote, because like what I like the look of Cerakote with is it looks factory finish. I mean, I got the side cases on my ZX10 are powder coated, but I don't like I kind of like this idea of it looking factory. Like that's what I like the look of Cerakote with, because it appears to look factory.
Well, I mean, you get a good powder coater. I mean, there are, you could throw a stick round here and hit a powder coater.
Yeah.
You find I've had one I've had for years, Dan, and he's amazing, and you can talk to him about different coatings and advice and stuff like that, and he's constantly using different configurations, and there's a real sort of diverse choice now about finishes, and
I mean, their work's definitely going to get busier when they introduce the ban on chroming, because it's reported that chroming will be banned around the world eventually due to the gases that they release, and which is obviously why you're seeing now a massive influx of people impersonating chrome on a powder coat. You're starting to see more powder coat now that it's looking shinier. Again, how true it is, I'm only going off stuff I've seen on social media. And
I don't, it's an industrial process that's so widely involved. I mean, I've not heard anything about this. It's the first time.
So I've seen it.
It's so deeply intertwined in industry. They couldn't possibly make it illegal. they can change they could change
again, like I said, this is going off
chemicals,
how true it's going.
yeah.
But I was kind of putting it together because of respect of like you are seeing more and more powder coaters doing more of a chrome finish.
You can get chrome finish powder coats. Some are more successful than others.
Yes,
I've seen it done very well. I've obviously seen very bad.
It's
all to do with the quality of the product and the skill of the powder coater.
Yeah.
Like see-through, like clear powder coat.
Yeah.
Often that can sort of milk out.
Yeah.
You know, if you wanted, because I've liked the idea of having a
bare metal
and then just clear coating with a powder coat, but it never quite comes out right.
I think someone famous did a Charger in America. They put the whole body in the oven. It was bare metal finish, and it was brushed bare metal finish. I can't remember who it was. I know it's obviously cars, but they literally baked the whole shell.
Yeah,
it was bare metal.
Well, Dan's oven. You can almost get. In fact, I think he does Land Rover chassis. His oven's big enough to put.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome.
He's a well kitted out guy.
But again, it's like, I mean, obviously, I'm now trying to get prices together for my 125 for the bits that need powder coating, and some of the prices, I'm like, well, that's changed.
Well, that's it. I mean, part of the challenge of running a business like this is knowing what to do yourself, and what to farm out to other people. Like I said, when you've got luxury of time, on your side, if you're a hobbyist, you can try all these things yourself, and there's no sort of, it doesn't matter if it doesn't turn out right. When you're running a business, a big part of it is building relationships with contractors. And I've been very lucky with my powder coaters, and meeting people like Dan. I met one of the best wheel builders in the country, and I trust him entirely to tighten true my wheels when I need them. And not that I can't do that myself. I did the Northman wheels myself, and standing behind that on a dyno going flat out was quite terrifying.
Knowing nothing else,
I built that back wheel.
I mean, I wouldn't know where to start.
But yeah, so there is a sort of, I feel better, especially like we've just spoke with them 72 spokes, giving it to wheel building.
Yeah.
But having those sort of contractors, like finding a really good painter, and you find one and then you latch onto them and you hold on to them dear life, because good painters are very difficult.
They are hard to find.
Lucky enough
Definitely
to work with a couple of really, really good ones. And a lot of the time you'll find these people in your local area as well. We're at a bit of a industrial center, and it's very unknown. We're kind of like this, the stuff going on in this industrial state, you will believe, right? And I've spoken a bit on social media, but I've got Bob over there building pre-65 trials bikes at the highest level. I've got other side of this wall. They're building Formula 4 cars and hill climbers.
Oh wow!
At the highest level, right? I've got the other side of that wall. They build steam engines.
So their machine skills.
There's a whole huge factory next door building steam engines, and some of these worth like 500 grand.
That's awesome.
Ridiculous things, and they make them from scratch in there.
So that aura of skill set,
just in this
flowing, isn't it?
It's
just flowing.
And then down the road we've got Ravenworks doing amazing stuff with Japanese cars and big block Americans cars. Those guys are amazing and really good friends of mine. You've got Colab Customs down in
Well, I discovered Colabs through when you went and did some stuff with them. Well, I think you went there for the day and whatever else you were going on there, but I went to their first open day.
Yeah.
And obviously when I was talking to Guy Martin, I was talking to Guy Martin about his escort that was in, because he's got
he's got the pickup as well, isn't he?
Yeah, the pickup. That was originally an RS Cosworth
1500 horsepower pickup.
Yeah, so it's got an R35 Skyline engine in the back of it.
Right.
But yeah, I was talking. That's when because as I say, I spoke to Guy Martin for about all of 3-4 minutes. I was holding on to my youngest son's hand, and when we walked off, my son said to me, "Dad, why was your hand shaking?" I was like, "It's Guy Martin, isn't it?" It's like,
oh,
you know what I mean? I'm like, fucking hell. It's like, obviously that's the racing side.
With that guy, he's a fascinating.
Oh, mate, yeah. What a cool guy. And to be fair, when I first saw him at the worship show, because obviously I said earlier, like, I'm part-time tattooist, so I remember being sat down, and obviously that church or cathedral or whatever it is where they host it, I'm not very good on buildings, but incredible building. I'm sat down on the sofa like yours, and I look over and I'm trying to look at one of Sticky's bikes.
Yeah.
And I noticed this tattoo on the back of his calf, and I'm like, that looks like Guy, because obviously Guy Martin has, being that I like to nerd out on tattoos as well.
Yeah.
Like, Guy Martin has a conrod and a piston with flames on the back of his calf.
Right. And
I'm like, that looks like Guy Martin. I look up and it's like, that's Guy Martin. But obviously he's swarmed with all these people, and I only got to collar him when he was outside, because he's very much his own. He does say like on that he doesn't really like all the attention.
Yeah.
And he was just outside on his phone, but he was in like literally his normal work, like shorts, t-shirt, and his trainers, like just a normal dude. And it's like, this guy known around the world, and like, so cool. I mean, but I got in the car, and it was like a lesson to my kids was like, that's what you don't do. Kids were like, what are you on about, Dad? And I'm like, I had an opportunity to ask this man, knowing that he probably would say no, but I had an opportunity to ask him to be on my podcast, and I fucking fucked it, And I said to but it was kind of like the whole point was like, so for part of my whole journey is like, if I can inspire my kids to just have a go, like, I don't have education to give them, I pretty much dropped out of school, and I don't have loads of money to chuck at all of this, but what I have is this annoying perseverance.
I'm sorry, stop you there. You do have an education though, because you've got all this life experience. And that's
true.
Just because you've not got letters after your name, or you go posh college or whatever, it doesn't matter.
No, that is true.
You're educating them
just on perseverance, day, right? Just like literally to persevere, and like, because I didn't like I was saying before, whilst I was setting up earlier, it's like all of this would be easier if it was getting thousands of views and that, it was going viral and that. But that's how I know it's real, because there are days where we'll sit here and I'll get no one interact on them, and I'll do a reel which I think's really cool, and it won't do anything. And it's like, do you sell out and do cheesy shit that's working on TikTok, or do you kind of tweak slightly what you believe in?
That's it. And like I said to you before, there's times when I get frustrated because there's a guy in America that's built 2 bikes in 10 years, and he's getting 300,000 followers because he keeps posting in pictures of
the same
bike down the same street, looking cool with a pair of sunglasses and no helmet on, right? That's frustrating, but that's not what I'm about. No, I'm trying to. I never wanted to be that famous Instagram builder. I don't want to be that influencer that is just posing next to a bike that doesn't work, for example, in a load of clothes that he's not paid for. And sure, there's a part of that, because if it wasn't for people like Spada or Anti-Gravity, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So I have to do some of that. But my main thing of my page is not my shop window, I call it. It's not the main profile grid. It's on the next page, which is the reels, where I'm teaching how to do things, showing what I'm doing and why, and all those sort of side of it. And that's what's important to me. But they don't get massive views, No. I can put a picture of a pretty bike and it do 30,000 likes or whatever. But it's the other side. It's that matters. When I get excited, I want to show somebody I've just made a pin for a foot pedal. On the lathe, or I've just turned a flat sheet of steel into some googly eye, headlight mount for a CRF. That's what's exciting, and that's good content, and yeah, it doesn't get the views that the other things do.
Well, I suppose like
stuff does,
believing in what you do, like you know that the main people that count are seeing it, which you know, obviously you're like you say, you might only get X amount of views on a reel, but them X amount, one of them's potentially a new customer because they see what you're doing, they see that you care, you know.
Yeah,
and really that's all that really matters, isn't it?
There's a face behind the account. It's a real person. It's a real person doing real work. And that's an important side of my business. Yeah, being very open about what I'm doing.
But it's like we're saying, obviously, about like, obviously we've got some gravity batteries. I've never seen how small they are, but like you've used them on every build, and you said like if it wasn't for the fact, I mean, this like 1, 2, like look how small that is, and like that'll crank up to, you said comfortably, right? Up to a 500. Like,
so yeah, well, yeah, it's 120 cranking amps in that tiny little thing. But this is so like I've said in some of my posts, I've been using anti-gravity batteries since I first started building bikes. My very first bike had one in. And the reason I chose them is because they're so small. There's such a small case battery with such a powerful cranking, and because they're lithium, you can lay them flat. I can hide that anywhere. So when you're a bike builder whose principal philosophy is
minimalistic, yeah.
They were perfect for me, and I've said it before, I simply couldn't build the bikes the way I build them without having a component like that, because and the questions I get asked at shows always without fail, my biggest question is, where do you hide the battery?
Wow, yeah.
And people will scan around the bike for 10 minutes and then eventually I'll go, right, it's here.
Right.
So
yeah,
I have been punting them out, if you like, or advertising them or showing them off, these anti-gravity batteries, for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
But not because I was being paid for it, not because I was getting a discount, because I wasn't. So I've always paid full whack for my batteries.
Well, you've only just partnered up with them.
Yeah. So when they reached out to me and said, like, we love what you're doing, you know, and I got to know them very well, because I would ring Pete and the guys, and we'd talk things through. I was like, I've got a project on. It's a classic bike, but I'm not sure what what regulator rectifier I need. And they would always be really willing to get and do the get onto MOSFET or Rick's Motorsport and ask. A day later they'd come back to me and they'd have a whole sort of kit priced up. So when they reached out to me recently and said, look, we'd really like to make a partnership official, we'd like you to work for us, I was absolutely over the moon to have a company like that, and somebody I already trust. Well,
yeah, I mean, I remember you putting out a video. I remember you putting out a video 2-3 years ago. I can't remember which bike it was, but you'd had a problem with something, or you were stuck with something, and you'd put in the video how you had this problem and how they'd helped you. And this like probably 3-4 years ago. I can't remember which bike it was, but you were having a bit of an issue with something, whether it be regulator or something like. Yeah. But I do remember you putting out a video a few years ago about
lithium batteries, and when anti-gravity, you see, they make race car batteries, right? So the anti-gravity batteries was built on the motorsport industry.
Yeah.
And they've just been the UK side of that. So Anti-Gravity's Batteries UK has just got new management. They've just a new owner. And he's really interested in people using them in other ways. So he reached out to me as a bike builder, because I was using their batteries in a different way.
Yeah.
Now, I got the race team. I got Innovation onto these when I was there. And this was before that I was working, with them. But I introduced Martin, which was a lovely thing for me to be able to do.
Knowing you're that.
I actually gave him something back.
Yeah.
And then he started putting them in his race bikes, because they were so small and light.
Yeah.
And they don't, and the track bikes, the bigger 1000cc track bikes, they don't they take the alternators out. So
I was about to ask.
Yeah, they're not generating any power.
They're just zapping it.
But one of those little 401s can do, 3 or 4 races before it's depleted.
Wow.
The amp hours in it.
Yeah.
And it weighs nothing. So he was like over the moon. He's just saved himself a few grams on weight. And,
which matters.
And reliability, which absolutely matters. Yeah. So that was really nice because I gave them some back. So now I've got to deal with Anti-Gravity UK, and I get sort of premium access to their catalog. I get a better, I get some.
Because what else do they do? Obviously, they're anti-gravity battery in the name, but it's not just batteries, is it?
Well, no, that's the thing. That's the key thing, right? You can't just put a lithium battery in any bike. And they're not necessarily the easiest fix, right? You have to know how to look after them. You have to know the do's and don'ts with a lithium battery. Obviously, you see all the scare stories about Teslas. But
yeah, exactly right.
So if you don't use them properly, you get them wrong. And they got a bit of a bad rep when they first came out because people were getting things wrong. I've only had 2 problems in all of the bikes that I've built. All had an anti-gravity battery. I've only had 2 that had problems, and they were both my fault.
Okay.
Because I got it wrong, right? The first one I accidentally shorted out on the frame.
Right.
And then it's game over, new battery. And they're not as tolerant. Like you can short out a lead acid battery for as long as you can keep just making sparks.
Yeah.
And the thing will still work, right?
Okay.
But you do that and you're on a lithium, and then you're done.
Yeah.
So you have to know that. The other thing is overcharging, right? So if your regulator rectifier isn't right, if it's putting out too much from your alternator, then you can overcharge it, and then you can do it, and then you'll get a swelling on the cells, and then it's game over again. Worst case scenario, you get a fire, right? So understanding that, and that's how I broke the second one. I bought a battery, and then I went to another company, and I won't mention who they are, but they insisted that their regulator rectifier was compatible with lithium batteries. When I installed it, we found out very quickly it wasn't. So it was overcharging as we were riding, as it was being ridden, right? So that's the thing. You've got to be very sure about, especially if you're putting into a classic bike, you've got to be very sure about your regulator rectifier. Now, if you're not sure, the guys at Anti-Gravity UK will tell you what you need. And when I said I was building the CB200 Twin, 1974, I was 50 years old. They came straight back within half an hour. They'd found me the perfect regulator rectifier, which was pretty much plug in and play.
Wow.
So all I had to do, because it was slightly bigger than the stock one, all I had to do was drill an extra hole in the frame. And other than that, it was just... Are
you converting us? Maybe is it going from 6? Are you going up from 6 to 12 volt?
No. Well, so I'm taking out the old.
But was it originally a 6-volt system?
No.
Or no? Okay.
But it has got some like complications with capacitors and stuff like that.
Right.
But I generally start again with electrics anyway. And if I have it, I don't think I've ever worked on a 6-volt bike.
My Suzuki was 6-volt.
I have got an opportunity for an Norton Electra, and that's a 6-volt. And I'm just going to...
You just do it all out and put it all up to 12.
Take it all out and put it into 12. But yeah, so getting the red rec right. Generally, if your bike is post 1997, I believe, then you're genuinely safe with the red rec. But it's still worth a check.
Right.
Like the CG125s.
Yeah.
The ones I do, 2004 to 2008, I can just put a lithium battery in, it's fine. But anything younger than 96, you want to be checking. Almost certainly you want to.
So I got a gel battery in ZX10. Right. Cheap, cheerful, smaller. Although I have had issues with it cranking, obviously, like we spoke about earlier, and that was a gel battery as well the first time round. And obviously, my friend, I was just talking earlier, my friend just literally put a new battery in it, and it's side up. But I think really, again, just cheap and cheerful. Although I would looking at the size of these, like, I straight away,
I mean,
would sooner go.
The K100s. I mean, can you believe that powers a K100?
That's crazy, isn't it?
I mean, that's
like,
that's 1,000cc bike, and that's running it.
But it's tiny. Like literally, that's like what?
So that
4 inches in diameter, maybe inch and a half in
4x2.
4x2, yeah.
Yeah,
so
thereabouts.
And weight wise,
you got 240 cranking amps there.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's nuts. And obviously, and that will like you say, if you're wanting to obviously run like Moto Gadget, like with the all the good stuff, like that's certainly going to power it all.
There's your other thing, right? So overcharging, undercharging, is for a lithium battery. They don't necessarily like it. You've got to be careful with parasitic stuff. And the Moto Gadgets, they are wonderful things. I have a love-hate relationship with Moto Gadget M-Unit Blues, and I've used them. I can't remember how many I've put in, but I'm about to put one in the CB200. But they are parasitic, right?
What do you mean? So I don't know what parasitic means.
When your bike's off, they're using power.
Right. Okay.
Right now, it's only a little amount. And it depends what you have turned on and turned off. But the M-Unit Blue obviously comes with satellite tracking, tilt alarm, all that sort of stuff. So when your bike's parked and turned off, it's still running. It's still taking juice.
Okay.
And especially if you're using the Bluetooth functionality and you're running it from your phone and all that. So they will deplete your battery over time. So if you're going to install an M-Unit, you need to have a trickle point, and you need to plug your bike in, especially
to keep it
for the winter.
Yeah,
it needs trickle charging.
Yeah,
and you get a decent charger like the Optimate Duo, and it'll turn it as soon as it's tops up. It'll turn itself off, and it will just keep.
So do Anti-Gravity, they'll supply all of the.
Yeah,
you can buy all that through them as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So I get the whole system, because I nowadays, especially with my boutique bikes, I put a charge point in.
Yeah, because obviously you'll
see me put one in a few days ago.
Yeah.
So all they have to do, you're not hunting around. You don't have to take the bike apart to get to the battery. You just plug the charger.
Yeah, because effectively, like, it's all right building it for yourself, knowing that you could take the seat off and you hide you're building them. You're building it for your customer to be able to literally just plop in his garage and know it's going to.
I mean, I used to hide them in the loom. So you could just pull it out, and you got the wire, and then connect it, and then take it back away. But now I'm starting to actually have them as a fixture in the frame.
Yeah.
So it is just like take a cover off, plug it in.
That's exactly what people want, don't they?
It's those sort of details that matter, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're paying a premium for your bills.
Yeah.
You want stuff like that, convenience and ease. But for the smaller bikes like the CG125s, there's nothing parasitic on them. They're not draining power when they're off. So, you can put a 401 in there and then never have to look at it again.
Never have to look at it again.
Just happily sit charging itself while you're riding. It'll never deplete over time.
So do you upgrade like your ignition side of things? Like, will you do away with points or like
on the
on anything that
one of the best things you can do to a classic CB is get rid of the points and put digital ignition on.
Yeah.
I've said that before, and hands down, it's one of the most important things you'll do.
And obviously, will that play a factor within the?
No, it is not. No. Your bike is not running on the battery, and that's kind of a bit of a myth, right? Or a misnomer. Is that the right word?
Misconception.
Yeah, your bike should run without a battery.
Yeah.
Right. If it's electric start, you start a bike, you should be able to take the battery out and it still be running.
Yeah.
Right. Because the engine generates its own power.
Yeah.
Right. Your battery's there as a backup, as a fallback for that. So it's there to start your bike. It's there to maintain your lights.
Yeah.
And
to stop the whole dimming and
so your battery's there to support the electrical system, but it shouldn't be running flat and it shouldn't be overcharging. It should be just staying fully charged all the time, because your engine is charging it up at the exact same rate as your engine's using it, as your bike's using the power, right? And when people come unstuck, like I said, it's when you've got something parasitic, or you're trying to run heated grips at the same time as you,
or it's surfing out somewhere,
like you've got your iPhone plugged in, and that's when you start running into
exactly
it's taking too much out for the engine to put back in it. you know.
No, that's it, isn't it? I mean, like, it's like obviously look, in the racing side of it, they do away with them, don't they? Because obviously it's less weight.
Yeah,
without,
exactly. Yeah. Or they
do away with the charging
or
system.
they go the other way and just run the bike off a small battery.
Yeah.
For the period of the race, knowing that it will run flat. You know, they might get 20 or 30 laps out of one battery, and then
Yeah. No, that's
took it away and put a new one in.
That's it, innit? But it's definitely cool, like you say, the fact that you've been able to like, and this is like, it's going back to like, no one can turn around and say, "Oh, Jonathan's now advertising anti-gravity batteries," because like it's all over your page from years ago. Like even I knew that you were using them, because you post it all.
I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be one of those guys that just has a small amount of followers, but they seem to have like 20 or 30 affiliations.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and I said right from the start, I'm not doing affiliations unless I believe in the product.
Yeah.
Spada have been with me for a few years. We got introduced. They sent me a package, and I really liked it. And then we sort of developed a relationship. And do you know what that does for me? It pays for photo shoots. So the benefit, I don't get anything monetary from Spada, but I get nice clothes. So I haven't had to buy any biker gear for years because they send me it. But it also means I can
photos.
I can get some nice. I can pay my photographer to do a nice shoot when I've got a nice bike.
Yeah,
and it helps me in that way. And it also gives me a bit of coverage from their side. But yeah, with anti-gravity, or like I said, we already believed in the product, and now it's going to really help me to keep doing what I'm doing. And
also help others, like you were saying. The fact that there's going to be discount codes available for people.
I think that there's a sale on right now, and you'll see me pushing the sale over the next few days. There's a sale up until Easter, and then after Easter, I'll be getting the discount code for you guys. And it's not just bike builders, like I said, motorsport batteries. So if you're a high-end car modder, I've already talked to the guys down at Ravenworks and stuff. If you're into that, if you're into the mod scene, then these are for you as well. They do everything. I can even have an anti-gravity battery in my transit van if I wanted to.
That's cool.
But I can't justify the money for that.
No. I mean, whilst it works, doesn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, for those people that are doing high-end car mods and high-end bike buildings, then yeah, it'd be really helpful.
I think that's it. I mean, the fact that like that you're gonna, whether it be a Harley or a CB 750 or anything, the fact that like, because like you said, this is one of the biggest challenges when you're building a minimalistic bike. I mean, obviously we were talking downstairs, like I've got to leave that massive gap in the middle of the frame that I want to get because I'm going for that vintage bobber look with a sprung seat. I have nowhere to hide a battery.
Yeah. And
like that's going to fit into the little box that I want to hide underneath, because I don't want this box to be on show. Like I want it to look like there's nothing there, and like that's one of them.
And like I said, you can't do it with a lead acid battery, but you can lie that flat.
Yeah. The fact that realistically on a 125 build, you could build the box to that, and the starter relay and the regulator rectifier effectively all sit into that little box on that same dimension if you built it right.
Well, I mean, I do have that in mind. I say sometimes, I don't really know how I'm going to achieve something until I start it.
Yeah.
But I've always got, right, where on the bike am I putting the battery? So with things like the Northman that use a slightly bigger 801, I made the decision early on, right, we're going for a seat cowl.
So hidden in there.
But it doesn't, people put in batteries in seat cowls isn't new.
No.
But being able to put a battery in a seat cowl and make it as low a profile as I do, as I'm able to do, because you don't have to have a seat cowl this tall.
Yeah, with the battery stood upright. Yeah, because it's got to stand upright.
So yeah, I can do these really sort of sleek,
Yeah, definitely.
Modern looking seat cowls.
I mean, even like you
still have the battery, and the solenoid, and, and a few other bits in that cowl.
I mean, you could literally even cut out a tiny channel if you had to. Like, let's say the back of the design didn't facilitate anywhere to hide any of that. Like, that wouldn't even be a big job to literally build a box out underneath the petrol tank. Right? Do you know what I mean?
So I did a build, and I wasn't sure. I had this idea in my head, right? Because I didn't have room on this build for.
I remember you talking about this as well.
So I rang up Peter and the guys at UK.
This is possibly the video you released,
right?
Because now you said about running parallel. I remember. Yeah, I remember on a video you did a few years ago.
Is there anything stopping us running two batteries, two 401s in parallel? Because basically the 801, the next size up, is the same.
Right.
It's just two together.
Yeah.
So is there anything stopping me running in parallel? And he was like, no, they run fine in parallel. So
you're not getting 24 volts. You're still getting. Of course, yeah, running parallel.
No, you're still getting 12 volts. You're just getting double the amp hours.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And double the cranking amps.
Yeah.
But so your 12 volts stay the same.
Yeah.
But you're getting, instead of 120, you're getting 240 cranking amps, and you're getting double the amp hours. So I was able to put two 401s in a CB750, because I laid them flat under the seat in parallel and then hidden away. So I didn't even have to think about where I was going to put an 801.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm not sure that had been tried before, but it works. It works very well, and it's still working. The batteries are still fully charged. They're still, still
that's awesome.
Never had a problem with that. And I made some nice sort of brass connections, fully insulated, made sure everything was set so nothing moved. So it did take a bit of thinking about, and a bit of engineering, electrical engineering, if you like.
Yeah, because there's something to be said about like popping the seat and seeing all the white light neatly all in its place. I mean, like underneath the seat on the ZX10, it's like, it's questionable. Like, it isn't like spaghetti junction. You could clearly look at everything under my seat and go, all right, that's clearly going there. That's clearly going there. And they do somewhat behave, like, as in, like, they're not just like that, but they're not like, I see some of these builds and everything's like mounted down on the under tray, and it's like incredible. Like
I said, some of those ones in Shed Row, when people have spent like hours, spent like 5 years on one bike, and you can see that level of detail in there. I try to make my electrical systems nice, right? When you look under the seat on the Hockenheim, it's like perfect, and everything, and it's beautiful and very, very minimal. But other times, depending on the budget, depending on the deadline, I've got no qualms about wrapping up a loom like convention, or like they do on stock bikes. Obviously try and keep them neat and tidy, but you can't spend 4 weeks on a
wiring up, especially if, like, say, if the budget is what it is. And
so obviously it depends on the build, but for those high-end bikes, my boutique stuff, I do like to spend a lot of time making it right.
So what bike is on the list of what you want to build? Like, what's left? Like, you've done the K100, like, you've done CBs.
I'd love to do a few more of these.
Is there another bike though that you're like, I'd love to get my hands on one of them?
I am chomping at the bit. I've been offered, I think I said to you earlier, I've been offered a Norton Electra.
Yeah.
For a very good price, 1963 Norton Electra. So it was the very first electric start bike they did. And I've been offered it for a crazy price, but it would be for me. And at the minute, everything's about the business and getting the bikes that I've got.
It's got to work.
It is time I built myself something nice.
Yeah.
And something I can just keep as a showpiece. Because I build a beautiful bike, and then a few weeks later it's gone.
Yeah, it's now in someone else's possession.
Yeah. I get to ride it around, have a photo shoot, and then I say goodbye to it. And I don't keep any stock,
No.
So it'd be nice to do that. And I love the idea of doing something really classic, like classic British bike. I mean, the classic restoration guys are going to hate me because I am, like I said, I'm going to
cut it up.
I'm going to calf the hell out of it,
man.
But it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
I've already built it in my mind. But
So when you say cat, I mean, obviously we're saying like completely handmade subframe, like from the loop back, or even I'm guessing you'll still run twin shocks.
The frame of it lends itself anyway. I'm gonna do it. My idea is to do it very sympathetic. I want to keep to the bike, but I want to go shallow seat cowl, sleek seat cowl. The original tank, obviously drop bars, but I want to keep as much of the original bike as possible. I'm not going to go crazy front end on it. There's no.
Although that would be cool.
You don't want to put USDs on a 1963.
I don't know.
No, I don't think I want to go that far.
You don't want to upset people that much.
I want to go traditional. It's a 60s bike, and I wanted to do it. I want to do it like the Bob Boys, the classic cafe racer thing.
Yeah.
But with the quality and the engineering that I now know how to do.
Yeah.
So it'll be a boutique bike. It'll be beautiful. It'll be high gloss, the best materials, the beautiful leather seat. So it'll look.
Yeah.
But
it'll be a Jonathan Hull motor.
Very strictly to those principles.
It'll be one of your builds.
Of the cafe racer.
Yeah.
Without, I don't want to put ridiculously modern parts on it. And if I do, they won't know they're really. It might be that we go for motor gadget 10s on it, and like an electrical system, but I'm not going to throw big expensive forks at it. Big like modern, ultra modern forks or rear suspension at it. Just beautiful traditional.
So I got this idea.
Quality engineering.
Yeah, So I got this idea to do. Like with my Super Dream, when I eventually get back to doing it, I'd love the idea of calling it a carbon racer.
Wow,
like maybe having the tank carbon skinned, so it'd be real carbon. They do like carbon skin. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've got that idea to do because it's already a monoshock anyway, and I'm gonna flick the back up a little bit. I've already got a replica of an Honda RS seat unit, the one that a lot of people use. They called it, I think it was a RS 125 seat unit they did, which was an old racer style where it comes up, it's all fiberglass. I don't know. I want to kick that up a little bit, not Street Fighter angle, but just a tiny bit, because I don't like dead flat. I'm just not a fan of dead flat. Right. It's the idea to do it a little bit, and then with the tank that the Super Dream comes with, it's got that horrible 45, like Honda did, where you would clip the side case in it, like the side panel into the tank.
Yeah.
That horrible, I didn't like, but the idea is that fiberglass, the rest of the seat unit to fit and kind of almost look a bit factory.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of having it all like carbon fiber.
Right. So just purely as an aesthetic.
Yeah. Right. But whether it be skinned on, like obviously the seat unit I could get made out of carbon fiber, but I can't afford to get a tank made from carbon fiber.
Have it if it's purely an aesthetic thing, go for hydro dipping.
See, hydro dipping is cool, but
there's a really good place in Yorkshire.
Yeah, my friend did my ZX, so I've got all the airbox in that hydro dipped on the ZX10, and it's really, really cool. But carbon skinning, you
actual carbon.
Yeah, actual carbon.
That sounds incredibly expensive for something cosmetic.
It does, but it's still a fraction of the price of going out and getting a carbon fiber tank.
Well, yeah, of course it is.
And again, I know someone that does carbon skinning.
Unless you're, going to track days.
There's no
for weight
you're building a Super 125 Super Dream. You don't need a carbon fiber tank.
Brand new BMW M's. It's entirely carbon fiber.
Yeah, the HP is it the HP4?
The wheels full carbon. All of the fairings on it.
I chased one
done in piece thing. And you can lift it up.
I chased one. Right, I was coming from back roads from Moulton back towards York, And this guy, well, I say chase one. I reframe that. I attempted to chase one. He's gone flying past me. I've dropped it. I'm on ZX10 and off I went following him. And we've come up to this corner. It's narrowed up and it's backed up on itself. This fucker did not move off that seat. And straight away then, and I said to you earlier, like before I come to the UK, I'd only ever been on tracks. I am no Valentino Rossi. I don't claim to be, but I'm confident in saying I can hold my own. Now, this fucking guy he didn't move off this seat. And straight away I was like, all I'm going to do is die on a mid-80s Jap bike. And what point have I proved? I lost against a computer.
Yeah.
Because I don't care how any superbike rider comes at me or anything like that, or any electronics are doing half the work. The fact that my ZX10, the back wheel's bouncing off the floor and it's starting to like trying to load up, the suspension's struggling to, and it's popping and banging and the back wheel's and I'm like, this dude hasn't even moved off this seat. Yeah. Like he's not doing shit. Like he's literally just hit different mode on that handlebar. Yeah. And I'm like, no. So as soon as that happened, I stopped. I just backed right off, let this old guy go.
I mean, nothing to prove out.
I've got nothing to prove, right? Yeah. And that's it. But
and it is scary. I mean, Bob is an incredibly experienced rider, and he's been riding all his life, and he likes nice bikes.
Yeah.
But it is scary that you can buy a 200-mile-an-hour bike off the peg.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Straight up, and it'll do it like that.
Yeah. Like, and it's not. Yeah, like you said,
quick shifting.
It's not just a 200-mile bike.
No.
It'll get there in fucking seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a scary thing to have available to the general public, isn't it?
And that's the thing, right? Is it's encouraging riders that think they can ride. Like, that's not chatting shit on them.
You get a 40-year-old, middle-aged man that's just decided he wants to get into motorbikes, but he's got the money to buy something like that.
Yeah.
Who hasn't done the years of training and experience and all that.
See, I only own one bike that's younger than me. Everything else is older than me.
Yeah.
Like everything. And like everything, like when you jam on the brakes and you're having a bit of fun on it at 70, 80 mile an hour, because that's all realistically it will comfortably do. But I say comfortably, it's still fighting you. Like, my ZX10 behaves like a two-stroke with torque. It pops and bangs. And that's probably, I mean, it could do with a Dynajet kit in it. It could do with a nice, but I love that angriness of it. That it's like a two-stroke with torque. It's got that lumpiness, and then all of a sudden it like clears its chest and it clears its throat and off it goes. I love bikes that aren't designed, that just don't handle. Like they just, I love that fight in it. That not to the level where it wants to kill you.
Never, like I said to you, I've never been massively into road bikes, like track bikes, or super fast bikes. I'm into the smell and the feeling and
no, definitely
the pleasure of riding, and I can have just as much fun on a little 125 150 as I can on 1000cc.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why I've gone from building the one
different.
Yeah,
it's different experience. Yeah.
And
there's nothing like putting your pulling the throttle back on
something that'll.
Yeah, you can still have fun on a little,
little
small case.
Definitely.
Well, we've.
I think I was about to say, mate. I look down there.
Yeah,
I think we're about the same time as we were last time.
2.5 hours already. Yeah.
Yes.
Just chatting.
It's awesome, mate. Just like last time. Like, thanks again thank you for letting me into your garage this time and seeing, like, obviously, the progression. And so, obviously, what are people going to see from you next?
Well, I mean, truth be told, I'm still getting over, moving the business down here, setting the place up, getting it to a functional level, took time out. So I'm still working on my backlog. The CB 200 Twin is going to be down at the bike shed, hopefully with like a little secret project I've got going on. There's a possibility. I'm definitely going to have one bike there. Hopefully have two. Might even have three. Wow. We'll see. My kids will kill me if I'm not at Malay Mile this year, because it's like family holiday. My daughter loves it. Yeah, I see the videos of you guys in the field. Because we couldn't go last year because I was in the middle of moving here.
Right.
So we just couldn't do it. And I was gutted because I've been to every one in the last 5, 6, and it was a 10-year. So hopefully it'll be at Mallee Mile this year.
Do you think you'll ever make it down to Race the Waves?
I don't know.
Down the old Pyrenees. It's on the
yeah.
Pyrenees, isn't it? Yeah, it is on the Pyrenees. I can't remember if it's Spanish side or
I mean,
French side.
I've got loads of stuff on my bucket list.
Yeah,
that I'd really like to.
I'd love to do Race the Waves.
At the minute, just I can't imagine like having the time or funds to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully do that. On builds coming up, there's a CB750, there's a 150 grass tracker, there's a I'm actually doing a CG125 calf.
That's cool.
To my old spec. I've got another little Honda to get done. And hopefully a slightly delayed big boutique build. Same client that bought the Hockenheim is having a sister bike built. There's been a bit of delay on getting started, but that will be same sort of price line, same sort of quality build.
So we'll all get to see the same type of build. But everything's everything's at the same quality anyway, isn't it?
See what I can do when with a budget and big budget.
That's cool.
It's one of my boutique builds, and I can only do 1, 2 of those a year max.
Yeah.
So that's quite exciting. But yeah, I'll keep plodding on with tutorial stuff, the engineering side of it.
I think it's cool. I like it I think it's your Sunday or your Monday you post, and the recap. I like the recap of what you've done all week.
I think that's
I know. I think it's really cool. I think it's really, really cool.
It picks up your engagement again. But people, because I do it, right? Sunday morning doom scroller. Are you not a Sunday morning?
I'm a random time doom scroller, mate.
Right,
I get
lie
stuck.
in bed Sunday morning. How many of you sit in bed Sunday morning, can't be bothered to get up and they do a bit of doom scrolling? So if you can time your, posts for that, then give them something nice to watch when they're doom scrolling instead of endless stuff about Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
All that shit, it's all shit. Not fucking electric shit. I'm not a fan. What before what is your thoughts on electric bikes?
It's not a quick answer. From an engineering point of view, I think it's quite exciting. The speed of them is quite exciting. From electric vehicles in general, I think the whole thing is a con. I think it's nothing to do with the environment. It's all to do with control.
Definitely.
Went into quite detail at with the podcast with Bruce. The move to electric is all about control.
100%.
Financial control, physical control. That's what it's about. It's about the corporations having you by the nuts. Takes away your freedom. Gas powered vehicles, petrol powered vehicles are freedom, and we are getting less and less more of it we are giving up, more of it we are relinquishing our control of. And I think it's really important. We shouldn't be investing in electric. It's another finite resource. Lithium, we've talked about lithium batteries. They are incredible things, but lithium is a finite resource, and mining lithium is potentially more pollutant than mining fuel.
It's the whole
we're swapping one for another. And what we should be investing in is cleaner fuels. Cleaner synthetic fuels.
Which is happening. There's already man-made fuels out there,
Yeah, I know Porsche were putting a lot of money in, and the VAG group, Volkswagen Audi group, putting a lot of money at one point into synthetic fuels and clean burning fuels, and that's the way to go.
I mean, technology's brought back a two-stroke.
I don't think
they've actually now put two-stroke back into production where they've been able to fuel inject it. I can't remember who did it. I think it was KTM possibly.
It's
but I can't remember. But I know it happened.
But electric's all about,
I just, for me personally, Jonathan, I don't like the fact they ain't got any soul.
No, they haven't. No.
There's no soul in it.
There's a place for it.
Yeah, there is.
Point of view, but not for me.
No, not for me. And on that note, before we end up so thanks again, mate. It's been an honor and a privilege. It's been incredible, and hopefully, I said when I got here, how close you are to me. I'm like,
well, you need to.
We'll definitely be down, and it's cool.
We'll be able to get rid of you.
Oh mate, I'm that annoying bastard. I say to anyone that if they ever give me the number and like, drop me a message if you get stuck, I'm like, you're gonna regret that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even sleep properly, man. Like, stream button, and thank you again. And obviously, before I go, keep an eye out for anyone that is interested in an anti-gravity battery. Keep an eye out for when you issue the discount codes within the next few weeks. Because
thank you for that.
Yeah, well, it's like, especially for people that are building, because like they're all like, you're going to be able to put them anywhere, basically, aren't you? You know, they're so narrow, and you know, especially like bobber bikes, and like, I mean, I'm thinking, I know I'm going to need one. So, but yeah,
cool.
So, catch you all later.
See you later. Thank you.